Good evening, ladies and gents, and welcome to the land down under here in Bathurst, New South Wales, Australia, for tonight's coverage of Season 6, Round 8 of the NLRL Sunday League, powered by TRTN. As always, I am Regan Clark. Welcome, then, to the Mount Panorama Circuit. Founded in 1938, comprised of a whopping 6.2 kilometres, otherwise 3.8 miles, and 23 turns of FIA Grade 3, this track is the de facto endurance hub in Australian motorsport, seeing racing on the international theatre via the Intercontinental GT Challenge and the Bathurst 12-hour and Bathurst 6-hour, as well as seeing local competition in recent years coming up into 2027 from the GT World Challenge Australia Series, returning to Bathurst after 3 years away. But the event it's best known for, one that it has known the world around, is the Bathurst 1000, part of the Supercars Championship, formerly the Australian Touring Car Championship, a 1,000 kilometre, that's roughly about 621 mile long race, held in the current Gen 3 Supercars. A monstrous variety of touring car here in the Mount Panorama Circuit. These GT3s will be put through their paces much to the same on what is one of the most demanding circuits in the world of motorsports. Described by experts as one part Macau, other parts Nürburgring, it is a serious challenge to tackle the mountain here in Season 6, Round 8, and heading up rather greatly then in towards another endurance race this season. Reeling away from action in Imola that sadly saw the feature race end under red flags, we have a brand new winner nonetheless, following round 7 of the championship. We're in the twilight chapter now, only a few more weeks between ourselves and the end of this series, coming up 2 weeks from now on the 26th of July at the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza. Before we get into the talks of the championship standings, having a glance back at how far the series has come in this season to see a new winner then. The 20th driver ever to take a win in the NLRL Sunday League, Patrick Leger, finally emerges from 4 consecutive rookies victories to take one outright ahead of rival Tyler Vermack. And it's been a rather curious last week here, because following his victories and taking a look at how things have gone after 69 races of the NLRL Sunday League, with that brand new win from that of Patrick Leger, he joins the roster of brand new race winners for this season alongside Jared Vermeulen, who took his win with Ferrari in Donington Park earlier in Season 6. His signing to 5-Star Esports. This has been the elephant in the room for Leger. He has now been signed to the American team, one that has routinely fought to try and have a hand here at the team's championship. And looking at it, they are getting closer to Euro Titans, but with only a few more rounds left to go, Euro Titans is dominant. Championship defense reigns supreme following round 7. They have 546 points over 5 stars, now 378. TSRC make third with 172 points. Hispania with now 97.5. Malwar with 84.5. CRT Racing with 57. VEC Esports with 30. Holkianos with 11.5 points, and Italia Racing make 9th in the team's championship with 8 points. Now, you may be confused as to why the scoring has changed rather so dramatically, and as we get on into the talks of the Rookies Championship, this is the reason why. Now, originally, we had it to where the standard drivers, sometimes also called the pro drivers, ones that have competed for more than a season in the NLRL Sunday League, were kept separate in a different ranking on SimGrid to the rookies. Now, normally, you would just check the overall standing, because that's where the pros would be kept. However, this was causing massive miscalculations during the sprint events, where we've got 3-point scoring opportunities. It was actually awarding way more than the actual allotted amount of points under the regulations for this season. So a recent change has been made, and this will follow through into Season 7, that now the rookies and pros will share positions on the grid. So to take a look at an example, originally, if you had a rookie finishing in, say, 5th in the race, but behind 4 pros, they would normally receive the points amount for a Division P1, but now they'll take it from the overall points haul at the end of each race. So that would be an overall P5. And as mentioned there, that's because separate rankings caused a mass miscalculation of points. So now this should reflect closer their standing amongst the rest of the grid. And taking a look then back in towards those rookies as we pull away this disclaimer, now having a look at how that's changed things. Leger now leads the championship over Elias DeVos. Nick Lamming moves up to 3rd with Richard Claffey in 4th. Paul Vidler makes 5th with Ian McGowan in 6th. Joseph Reyes in 7th. Vladimir Ator-Malarex in 8th. Kevin Baum and Valentino Baum, 2 drivers who made their debut just last week in Imola, make 9th and 10th, 21 and 12 points respectively. Taking a look in towards the ballast for tonight's event, finds recent rises there for Brooklyn Donkin, as it would appear, and also for that of sorry, not Brooklyn Donkin, my mistake, that's Tyler Vermack. There was a bit of a bump there at round 6 on the second race, but he has now fallen way down the order. Now, in the weight negatives for the run-in towards tonight's race. Also weight gains there for Patrick Leger, and maintaining what was originally one of the highest ballasts of the season is Carlos Disch. He's back on the grid for this round of the championship. We didn't get to see much of him last round. Same story for that of Fate Galaxy. I am informed both of them are back on the grid, so this is looking to be a very exciting round as we now stack out over 40 sign-ups for this championship. Things are looking rather interesting for tonight's event. Looking at the format then, Enduro format for round 8 of the championship. You join us in the last 10 minutes of free practice here coming up around the corner. 20 minutes of qualifying to dictate the grid of a 90-minute race. A single mandatory pit stop according to race control. Open strategy, so minimum 3.2 second fuel stop. Anything else is a voluntary decision. Looking back onto the grid then, Lamming currently 4th overall on this grid. Having a look at the timings as we get into the discussion of balance of performance, finds Zolt Beefgartner currently fastest with a brand new driver here, the number 241 BMW, just about 2.5 seconds behind. Now, these are a growing number of brand new names to us here. Having a look with this one, just having a glance. This is Bohumil Janos in the number 241. He'll be joining us here, currently 3rd on the grid, ahead of another new driver. This is Ruben Pino of Torqueline Motorsport, number 927. He's joined as well by, I believe it's Pedro Lopo in the number 777. Nick Lamming makes 5th, and Dimitri McLeon rounds out the current timings as we head up into the second half of free practice today on the looming threat of qualifying later on. Balance of performance listings up now here from pitskill.io. And Ferrari find themselves with the best advantage in-house. Closely following them will be Porsche, Nissan with 9 kilos off, BMW with 7, and Mercedes with 2 kilos off. Into weight gains, Aston Martin gains 1 kilo, Lamborghini gains 5, Bentley gains 8, Audi gains 13, McLaren gains 17, and Ford a whopping 20. Sadly, no qualifying predictions for today, but we see here Tyler Vermaak now fastest in the session, Fate Galaxy 2nd, and speaking of Tyler Vermaak, let's have a glance at the Drivers' Championship then. Reeling away from what our discussion was surrounding the rookies, Vermaak now leads over Carlos Disch. We can see here by quite a staggering points haul, 58 points between the two leading drivers. Zolt Beefgartner in the recent points reforms, jolts up to 3rd place, now ahead of Cas van Veltzen by 3 points. Rounding out the top 5, the Rookies Championship lead and recent signee to 5-Star Esports, Patrick Leger in 5th with 151 points. Alan Alexander makes 6th with Ian Skeen in 7th. George Todd makes 8th in the championship. In 9th, we find Elias de Vos with 82.5 points, only 2 points away from Todd, who I am told has sadly left the championship. And Brooklyn Donkin rounds out the top 10 with 70 points. I believe this is 70.7. It's supposed to say 70.5 points there for Donkin. Otherwise, we see here with Vermaak fastest in the free practice so far, with the return of Galaxy and Disch, two drivers who fought over the chances to take their first victories in Bathurst last season and what was one of the most controversial rounds of the NLRL Sunday League Season 5 Round 4, the Bathurst doubleheader that saw Fate Galaxy become the first ever Swiss driver. Not Fate Galaxy, sorry, Carlos Disch become the first ever Swiss driver to take their victories in the NLRL Sunday League. Fate Galaxy stood on the chances to become the first Austrian driver to take a win in race 2, but was caught out by stranded traffic up at the quarry corner. He couldn't have caught it any sooner. The yellow flags couldn't have come out any soon enough. Sadly, he collided with stranded traffic. He couldn't have seen it coming. And that was the end of his time in that race. But now, fortunately, we see here he's back on for revenge. We saw his move to BMW a few rounds ago. So Galaxy gearing up for that Season 7 run and is looking very, very fiery today. Now, it's worth noting for Tyler Vermaak, we've followed this driver for quite some time in multiple different championships. He has taken wins here at Bathurst more often than he has not. And of course, one of his major wins was at the Bathurst 4-hour in the last couple of years, covered here on TRTN. And that was between himself and Fabio Farr, the 791 Exclusive Esports Porsche, during his brief tenure with Exclusive Esports. At the end of the free practice session then, the 4 pros stand at the head of the field: Galaxy, Vermaak, Beefgartner and Cheeseman of 5-Star Esports behind them. Another new driver here we see with Adrian Dua, the number 802, leading the charge then for the Keck Sim Racing team in the Rookies division. You see behind him, this is Jus Leonard Bonker, or Bernker. I'm still trying to work out these surnames there, so our apologies to the number 965. But it is a Keck Sim Racing 1-2 in the Rookies at the end of free practice. Of course, with still plenty of the grid to follow them in towards qualifying today. We head up in towards the mountain for the first time in just over a season. You can see then, as it would stand, we have the number 67. This is driver who, for some reason here, doesn't appear to have a name. Rather curious turn. Oh, this is TYT123. Okay, so apologies there. He's just T for today. So heading up in towards today's session, we find 3 cars within 0.3 of a second. Beefgartner, Galaxy, and Vermac. So TSRC, 5-star, and Euro Titans going head-to-head. Dimitri McLeon makes the fastest at the end of free practice here for the rookies. Heading across the line goes the number 114. I believe we're about to get on in towards qualifying in a moment's time. Nearest to the line, the number 28. Actually, no, I believe it's going to be the number 87, so that'll be Nick Lamming out on track at the moment, making his way down the Conrod Straight. And of course, we'll get into the track tour of the Mount Panorama Circuit, one of our personal favourites here on TRTN, coming up in towards that qualifying session just around the corner from now. 2 more drivers down to the line then, as it would appear. Nick Lamming in the number 87, then the 777 of Pedro Lopo with that of Talkline Motorsports Porsche, making his way to the line from behind the number 87 Mustang. 2 opposite ends then on the BOP scale. Porsche seeing great advantage today. Ford seeing anything but for the run-in towards this round, but it was Ford that took double victories in Bathurst last season at the hand of Carlos Disch, as he became the first ever Swiss driver to take a win here in the NLRL Sunday League. A very poignant track in the history of this series. Down to the line then goes Lopo with Talkline. Heading up in towards qualifying then. Qualifying officially underway. 20 minutes then as we head up in towards qualifying here for Season 6, Round 8 of the Championship. Things are looking very, very exciting for today's event. Returning to Bathurst, a track that has given us so much theatrics over the last couple of seasons of the NLRL Sunday League. Today looks to be a case where they won't disappoint us this time around. Number 599 leads the charge, but he's moving over there to allow on through the number 55 of Fate Galaxy. A driver still scorned from his history here at Bathurst. He was so close to victory. Of course, has now since gone on to take his first ever victories in the NLRL Sunday League. Became the first Austrian driver to do so in the series' history. One of 20 drivers to take wins in this championship. As mentioned, we don't have any qualifying predictions for tonight. Insufficient data for today's event, but it is worth keeping an eye out for both Disch and Galaxy as they ranked among the fastest on the pre-race testing sessions heading in towards round 8 of the championship this season. Looking back through the series then, with the recent addition of Patrick Leger, albeit in a feature race that ended under red flags, he becomes the 20th driver to take a win in the NLRL Sunday League. And after his win in the sprint race, Tyler Vermac steps ever closer to what was a previously unbreakable title, as we see there to the wall. Fate Galaxy collides with the wall at the S's, so it's going to be Carlos Disch, by the looks of it, to take us on our tour as he now heads up the field, looking to go and catch on board with the number 54. Of course, double victories in his tenure with 5-Star Esports and Ford last season. Now, broadly different scenario for him. He's dropped 5-Star for Euro Titans. He's dropped Ford for Audi. Last season's rookies champion, now with quite some road to travel upon. We spoke to him last season at Alton Park following his victories there. He stood alongside Cas van Veltzen as the 2 champions of Season 5. Now he sets his sights on the overall championship lead. But as mentioned, he's got 58 points to play against, away from Tyler Vermac, who leads the championship after round 7. So getting on board with Carlos Disch as we head up down through to Murray's Corner. Last season's Bathurst double sprint winner takes us on our tour for the return to the land down under. Heading up towards Hell Corner then here at Turn 1. Originally in its early life in the 1930s and 1940s, before the Second World War, this was a motorcycle racing track and there was a large tree stump on the inside of Turn 1. Hence where it got the name Hell Corner. If you clipped that inside and hit that tree stump, well, it's pretty obvious where you were heading off to. Heading on to the first of our 2 major straights here. The Mountain Straight brings us uphill towards the run of Griffin's Bend here at Turn 2. Long sweeping right-hander as we continue the climb up toward the mountain. Heading up through to the cuttings then, turns 3 and 4. And this is where it really tightens up on the drivers. We've seen many an overtake attempted. Few have been successful, but the ones that are go down in history. Heading up through to Quarry. This was the infamous site then of the incident that took Fate Galaxy out of last season's charge to win in Bathurst. He would have to wait until far later in Season 5 to take his first victories in the Sunday League. Heading up through to Solomon and McPhillamy as we see here. Big clip over the curves, but he holds it. That was risky from Carlos Disch, but you can see the amount of control he has over that machine. Down through Brock's Skyline, named after Australian touring car legend Peter Brock. Through the dipper, now into the S's. In towards Forest's Elbow, here at turn 18 and 19. And that area comes up on you thick and fast. It is so easy, even for the most astute and experienced of driver on this grid, to be caught out by the Mount Panorama Circuit. Heading up on towards the Conrod Straight. longer of the two, where the mountain straight was about 1.1 kilometers. This is nearly double, 1.9 kilometers. If you head up through to the chase, originally called the Caltex Chase, after the petrochemical company of the same name, down through turn 21 and 22. Major overtaking spot to be found over the course of today's event. You can see there the Maguires and Liquid Moly sign overhead, as this was ripped from the Intercontinental GT Challenges Maguire's 12-hour Bathurst. Down towards the line we go then from Murray's Corner, turn 23. To the line goes Carlos Dish, the first time of today, 2:01.420. Behind him goes Zolt Beefgartner to second in the session, but it was not a valid time for the TSRC number 599. So Dish stands alone. Vermaat goes faster by 145 thousandths of a second. Then from behind, looked to be one of the newcomers. Then Leger to the line. Then Van Velzen. Perhaps it was naivety to not include Van Velzen in the conversation. Last season's Drivers' Champion has definitely not seen the best of times in the last couple of weeks. It has been a rocky road for the Dutchman, but he does find himself still with plenty of fire in his soul for the run in towards this round of the championship. He makes himself second place at this time behind Patrick Leger, who looks to be among the rising stars of Season 6. The Rookies Championship lead, a driver we've seen plenty of over on Fats GT, of which you'll be able to catch later on into next week as we head up towards the Nürburgring for the next round of Season 11 of Fats GT tomorrow evening. You see here with Leger, fastest time so far, 2 minutes, 0.930. Now, it is worth commenting upon the fact we have yet to see the times here from Fake Galaxy. It was a bit of a fluke run for him, hit at the wall on his outlap, I believe it was the case there. So we do find ourselves now with the 55 heading towards the line. So we'll see, does he put a time on the charts here? Yes, he does, and it's fastest by a landslide. He's not going to let the memory of last season's Bathurst performance go to waste. Still scorned by being denied that victory by traffic in his way. He will not stand to lose this one again by the looks of it. 475 thousandths of a second over Leger in second place. Van Velzen makes third, Vermaat fourth, Dish in fifth. Nearest is the number 67, so that will be for TYT 123. BMW, newcomer to the grid among several new names this season, goes second in the rookies. Actually, sorry, third in the rookies, behind that of Dua in the 802, second, and Leger in the number 9 in first. Nearest to the line was the number 65, a driver we have seen before here on the Sunday League, Leon Schumacher. There was a limited appearance from him and Felix Schwab during the last couple of seasons of the Sunday League, but these two, I believe, previously having raced with BMW, now swap badges for Ford for this season. Across the line from behind, we see there, very recent spur of times coming in thick and fast, and it puts Patrick Leger back at the head of the field over Fake Galaxy. Brooklyn Donkin has a point to prove. This week alone, we saw victories from him, his first in Fats GT over at the circuit Paul Ricard. And now we get to see here the Brit stands tall. 93 thousandths over the competition here. It's a Ford 1-2 in the land down under. Ford, no stranger at all to Bathurst in their 7th generation Mustang, also used in the Gen 3 regs in the Supercars Championship. The Mustang gels well with this kind of environment, like a duck to water. Number 55 is nearest, so Fake Galaxy is not going to take this one lying down, I don't imagine. So 133 thousandths to clear for pole position. Closer still as about 40 thousandths of a second to go level to Patrick Leger. We'll see what the 55 can do on his way towards the line. So here comes Fake Galaxy. Where does he find himself among the charts here? Goes into the 159s. 159.975. Breaking the ceiling off of the 2-minute barrier here. And we're not even halfway through quali. A remarkable turn of events here. We're seeing drivers firing on all cylinders. There is no track that puts more fire beneath the seat than this track here at the Mount Panorama circuit. Donkin second, Leger third, Van Velzen fourth, Beefgartner fifth, Vermaat sixth, Anderson in seventh, Dua in eighth, Dish ninth, Nagolski 10th. Speaking of the 54 of Carlos Dish, he finds himself in a 3-car pack heading down through. You can see among them there is one of the Keck Sim Racing cars, I believe. Yes, that is Leon Schumacher. Behind him is Zolt Beefgartner. Then following him is the number 54 of Carlos Dish. Beefgartner's into the pit lane, so Schumacher and Dish will make their way through to turn 23. Where does Dish find himself? He was 9th across the line, now 4th. And as it stands, 27 thousandths from Leger on the podium, so super close margins to be found on track right now. Number 1 nearest, here comes Van Velzen, needs about 2/10 here to go over Dish, couldn't find it in the last lap, and he's 74 thousandths clear over Beefgartner. Nearest is the 802, Keck Sim Racing's number 802 Mustang here on board with Adrian Dua. Stays in division, third for the rookies, 9th overall on track. 927 is nearby. That's one of the newcomers as well. Ruben Pino of Talkline Motorsports. Portuguese talent down towards the line there. Division, I believe here, having a glance, is Division 8th. But 15th overall as it would stand right now. Nearest number, I believe they're 58, and that was for Joseph Reyes. VEC Esports' number 58 Mustang now goes to Division 7th. See, emerging from the pits behind him there, that's Luca Tamburini. The Argentine talent with Porsche and ITAM Racing. Currently 18th overall in this quali session. So heading up into that halfway, it's Galaxy over Donkin over Leger in the top 3. Recent advances there, I believe, came from the 965. So this is another one of the Keck Sim Racing team's drivers here in the Rookies Championship. And it's Jus Leonard Bonker. Number 965 goes up and ahead of Ruben Pino of Talkline, and Sam Dicker behind, as well as Luca Tamburini. So recent shift of position there for him. Also, just having seen from behind, across the line a moment ago, went the number, I believe, number 87 and number 67. So Nick Lamming goes ahead of Bonker. And the number 67, that's TYT123, currently in 11th. Number 65, nearest to the line. So let's go to catch on board here if we can. With the 65, Leon Schumacher gets over the gravel there at Murray's, but he does shift nonetheless 8 positions from 21st to 13th. Nearest is the number 17, Brooklyn Donkin. Worth noting, stood on pole position only a few minutes ago. We know what he's capable of now, and we've seen a real spur in his performance in the last couple of months. Bathurst will put him through his paces. He couldn't find anything on that last lap. Behind him, the 802 to the line. Here comes Adrian Dewar. From 9th, stays where he is. He's, as it stands there, 29 thousandths from Declan Anderson in 2nd in the division at the moment for the rookies. Otherwise, 8th overall on track. So there, the frustrations from Dewar. Rockets towards the wall after that last lap. Cannot seem to find this otherwise minuscule gap to break in there to 8th place onto that 4th row of the grid. He wants to be as far away as he can here from what I would label on a 20-plus driver grid, the danger zone between 10th and 20th. 813, ITAM Racing's Luca Tamburini to the line from 22nd. Stays where he is by looks of it there. Across the line it goes to the 813. 777, nearest. Seeing here, Petroloppo. One of 2 members there, the Talkline Motorsport team, the other being Ruben Pino. Behind him, you can see there that I believe is the number, I want to say number 26 that was there behind him. Loppo to 22nd. So I believe that was, sorry, the 28, not 26. That's Declan Anderson. Division 2nd for the rookies, 8th overall. We've seen him on our screens for quite a fair deal of time. Used to go by the alias Indian Goat over on VSR, and what is now the OLRX VSR Midweek Championship. Anderson, who drove over in that series most recently with Porsche, drives for Ferrari this season. We see there a bit of a ropey run in towards Griffins at turn 2. Nearest is the number 1. So here comes Van Velzen. Behind him there, you can see one of the BMWs. I believe there, that is the, I want to say that's the 102. That's Kieran Nagolski behind him. Yes, so Van Velzen to the line from 5th stays there. Nagolski to the line from 10th stays there also. 7.5 minutes coming up on left to go in today's session. Number 927 nearest. Here comes Pino to the line. Where does he find himself? Currently 19th as it stands as he crosses the line there. Not a particularly wide gap to make there to get up ahead of Bonker in 18th. Number 17 across the line a moment ago. Brooklyn Donkin, 347 thousandths is still the margin here. Fake Galaxy breaking what seems to be the impossible margin of a sub 2-minute time. 159.975 in today's quali session as the sun continues to set here in Mount Panorama. Nearest to the line appears to be the number 3, Dimitra McLeon, with Mercedes AMG behind him there. That's Joseph Reyes. These two 15th and 16th across the line stay exactly in those positions. Number 55 and 54 to the line. So the 2 comrades here of Dish and Galaxy, the 2 who dominated throughout Season 5, Round 4. In our last trip to the Mount Panorama circuit, down to the line goes Galaxy. No improvement of time there found from Dish. Same story there, 1st and 4th. For the Euro Titans Endurance team, it's still, as it stands, a double podium with Brooklyn Donkin in the mix, and it's a 4 out of 5 in the top 5 with Cas Van Velzen in 5th. The only one that stands in that top 5, not from the Euro Titans Endurance team, last season's team's championship, worth noting there, is this one here. Patrick Leger, the rookie sensation of Season 6, and recent signee to the 5-star esports team. The number 9, still on, I believe, a part-time contract with Simplay Motorsports. We've been told is competing under the 5-star banner here in the Sunday League, and on a few other occasions thereafter, but this could play quite a significant role for 5-star at the moment, as it is quite the surprise, I should say, that Tyler Vermaak, a driver with such great affinity for this track, one who has won in so many different series, MSC, VSR, I believe he's also won here on NLRL outside of the console endurance series win that he got with Fabio Fire and exclusive. And the list goes on there, but right now he's flagging behind that 3rd row. The current championship lead, a driver who has been in the runnings to win a championship for upwards of 3 seasons now, since his last most competitive run in Season 3. Where he fought off between Van Velzen and Milliston. Ultimately, that post-race decision in Silverstone ripped away the chances. 3 seasons later, he's now at the head of the field by 58 points. And it is worth noting, he's north of about 25 kilos of additional ballast. Now, if we refer back to BOP for just a moment's time here, taking a look at McLaren, they've not got it easy for today. We're talking well north of 30 when you combine both BOP and success ballast. So he is going to be struggling. So it could be a case here for Vermaak that he's going to have to knuckle down over this 90-minute race and deliver an all-star drive if he wants to bring 5-star to yet another win this season. Of course, now his career 12th, having come last week at the sprint in Imola. And he steps 1 foot ever closer to what was previously an unbreakable record from that of Melvin Milliston. Fake Galaxy still holds the fastest time, but it's worth noting here that that is starting to trickle down. Now only 245 thousandths away is this one here, Brooklyn Donkin. We can see parked right up the rear bumper, as it would appear. One of the Ferraris here he's trailing, I want to say, is that the... Just trying to get a glimpse in here. Yes, that is the 927. Talkline Motorsports Ruben Pino in 20th place. We also did see a recent shift there in the last lap just gone for Alan Alexander here of Euro Titans Endurance, the Bentley Continental, one of the most prolific sites on this grid, the only Continental in this series. The last participant being, I want to say it was David Tangwe at the start of last season to have driven the Continental as well. He stands alone now as the only Continental left on the Sunday League grid. Alexander in 12th at this time with Bentley. And it's rather unorthodox to see, looking back at that BOP, that Bentley's actually on the receiving end of it here. 8 kilos on the Continental, a manufacturer that normally would see double figures in weight reduction. Alexander may have to throw away the guise of starting from the back of the field alongside normally who would be Kieran Rod and John O'Driscoll as part of the back row bandits, as we dubbed them so many months ago. And he might have to knuckle in for what is going to be a much more by-the-books approach to racing today. Having gone, now as it would appear, in his last lap to 3rd by 400ths over Leger is Zolt Beefgarner of TSRC Esports. He shoves down the 5-star Ford down an extra position and puts another team into that top 5. TSRC looking to challenge last season's team's champions, Euro Titans Endurance. We see here with Brooklyn Donkin, the one who has been slowly but surely chipping away at the time of the leading number 55, Fake Galaxy, who as we speak makes his way from Forest elbow onto the Conrod straight. And in the slipstream there, the car, I believe in 17th, that is memory serving rightly here. One of the new Keck Sim Racing cars, that's Jus Leonard Bonker. With 2.5 minutes left to go. You can see him coiling up here, getting some distance between himself and the Mustang in front. And he may also consider his options to allow the 65 on pass. That's Leon Schumacher from behind him. I think he's going to instead choose to stay ahead on the run out through here. The 114 disqualifies himself from this quali session. Big Galaxy now on to his final flyer of today. Bear in mind, if he goes faster than his own personal best, he'll actually have a few seconds on that to go for another flyer. So it really does come down to this for the 55. He still holds that pole position away from his teammate Brooklyn Donkin, but we have seen him chip away at those times for the last couple of laps here, so there is really little to say he couldn't go for pole. We see, though, for Donkin, he is pumping the brakes a little bit here, lifting and coasting. Much like what we saw for the 55, he's coiling up for one more run here at Bathurst. And it's all or nothing for the 17 to claim on pole position. Now, of the 20 drivers to have taken a win over the course of the NLRL Sunday League, Brooklyn Donkin is yet to be one among them. So could we be seeing the brewings of a possible 21st race winner? Or could we be looking at revenge, a season in the making from Fake Galaxy? Stood so close to the chances to win here in Bathurst. As he makes his way down through Solman and McPhillamy, down through Brock Skyline. We are told there is a car in the way, but it has now cleared itself to the pit lane. So fortunately for him, he doesn't have to lift too much, if at all, on his run down through the S's towards Forest's Elbow. So right now, as it stands, leading the rookies division is Leger for 5-Star Esports. Leading overall in this qualifying session is this one here, Fake Galaxy, in the 55 BMW. 159.975, his own personal time to beat here on the mountain. Nearest to the line, though, we'll wait to see him down towards the line for what looks to be the end of this session for him. Leger on his way down towards the line will have enough time to go in for one more flyer. Behind him, the 315 of Alan Alexander, looking to breach the top 10. Leger's now up to 3rd. The 315 approaching the line there from 11th. Couldn't find it in that last lap just gone, but he looks to have the juice for one more run into Hotel Corner. No, he's backing out. Backing out of the session, then goes the 315 Bentley. 241 nearest. We see here Bohumil Janus across the line to 15th. Then the 55 crosses the line, and he does raise the bar. I didn't believe this here. Have a look, glance at that. 159.697 at the end of this session. We thought it couldn't be raised. Fake Galaxy says otherwise. That is world class. At the end of this qualifying session, Donkin retires to the pit lane. Leger's still out on track. Beefgarter's still out. Dee's still out. Van Velzen's back in the pit lane. Same story for Vermack. Anderson back in the pit lane. Dua in the pit lane as well. Nagolski could have something to say here. Across the line in front of him went one of the Fords, the number 87 of Nick Lamming. Nagolski across the line and stays in the top 10. Disqualifying himself from the session. Better late than never, I suppose the case there for Alan Alexander. Will start alongside Ben Cheeseman at the back of this 26-car grid. Nearest to the line. 777 on approach. Pedro Lopo. Torque Line Motorsports Porsche. Behind him, the 54. That's Fake Galaxy with Euro Titans Audi. Not Fake Galaxy, sorry, Carlos Deesh. How do I keep getting those two mixed up? Down to the line, here comes Carlos Deesh. Where does he find himself? 5th at the end of this session. 599 from behind, staying 4th. Zolt Beefgarner had a good go of things to try and challenge for that podium start. Will start on the 2nd row, albeit behind 3rd place this time around. Nearest, number 3, Dimitro McLeon. Behind him, Luca Tamburini of Itam Racing Porsche. Across the line they stay. Tamburini shifts up to 18th there. McLeon 17th. At the end of qualifying. Pole position then, and a historic pole there. 159.697. That may very well be the fastest time we've ever seen here at Bathurst. Fake Galaxy on pole for Season 6, Round 8 here at the Bathurst Enduro. Brooklyn Donkin makes it a Euro Titans 1-2 in the number 17 Ford. Behind him, rounding out the podium, 5-Star Esports' most recent signing and Rookies Championship lead, Patrick Leger. In 3rd, Zolt Beefgartner representing TSRC, still by his lonesome here. The only representative of the TSRC esports team, puts them in the top 5 in the team's championship and puts them in the top 5 on today's grid. Carlos Deesh rounding out that top 5. Now, heading out of qualifying today, onto the run into the Enduro race just around the corner. One more glimpse then at the regulations for today's event. 90 minutes coming up around the corner for round 8 of the championship. 1 mandatory pit stop. Open strategy, as we've been suggested there. 3.2 second minimum stop on for fuel. Otherwise, anything else is a secondary consideration. So tyres may very well come up into that conversation towards the latter half of the race. 3 minutes left to go. And before we get on towards the grid for today, a few articles of news here. One of which being, and I believe we did get confirmation of this today, effective Season 7, the balance of performance will be shifting away from pit skill and moving to XCL. We've just been given information there from Alan Alexander that he is actually in the pit lane. A rather curious development there. Well, he did disqualify himself. I don't know whether or not it was a case that he disqualified himself as the session ended. We have our what has now become a new thing here, the weekly Cheeseman fact. This comes from Ben Cheeseman. He says, fun Australia fact. The platypus is the only mammal that can make its own custard as it lays eggs and produces milk. That concludes your nature fact for today. Having a look in towards the grid for Season 6, Round 8 of the NLRL Sunday League powered by TRTN. It's Fake Galaxy to a historic pole position. An absolute trailblazer lap there. 1:59.697. At the end of quali today. Brooklyn Donkin starts alongside him on the front row. A Euro Titans 1-2. And joining them on the podium for that start, Patrick Leger, the most recent signing to 5-star. Zolt Beefgarner of TSRC makes 4th, and Carlos Dish rounds out the top 5. Last season's rookies champion starts 4 positions behind the driver who was denied his opportunity for a first race win here in Bathurst at Season 5, Round 4. Behind them, Cas van Velzen, last season's drivers champion in 6th. Tyler Vermaak, regular here to Bathurst, multiple-time Bathurst winner in a various different series in 7th. Declan Anderson in 8th place. Adrian Dewar in 9th. Kieran Nagolski rounds out the top 10. Looking further down the order here as we come up in towards the formation lap. Schumacher in 11th. We see TYT123 in 12th. Bonker in 13th. Janus in 14th. And Reyes in 15th. Lamming in 16th. McLeon in 17th. Tamburini in 18th. Pino 19th. And Rivera rounds out the top 20. Lopo in 21st. Sam Dicker in 22nd. Schwab in 23rd. We see here Vereth in 24th. That's for the Birkin Panda Racing number 30 Audi right at the very back of the field there. Having been, I believe, that was quite a late joining for him as he now starts ahead of this one here. Alan Alexander in 25th and Ben Cheeseman from a voluntary disqualification starts from the back of a 26-car grid. Otherwise would have been 13 cars on either side of which for the run in towards Round 8 today. There'll be 25 cars on track, 1 from the pit lane. 12 on one side, 13 on the other. 10-second warning then before we're given the 30-second startup period for these drivers. All 25 on the grid and 1 from the pit lane will fire their engines up here.
30 seconds.
And the mountain shall rattle once more. On then with our pole sitter as we head up in towards the formation lap here for Round 8 of the championship. This has been one we've been eagerly waiting for. It was quite the delight to see that Bathurst would be back on the calendar after the calendar reveal at the end of last season, where we were joined by Carlos Dish and Cas van Velzen for its reveal. Bay Galaxy heads up the field, the 55. And this was an unmistakably fast lap. We do see more pit lane starts there. Nagolski, who made it to the top 10 at the end of qualifying, now reluctantly starts in the pit lane. Same story for Ben Cheeseman, who will start alongside Alan Alexander from the pit lane. So it'll be 12 on one side, 11 on the other to make 23 cars starting from the road here. The others from the pit lane of a 26-car grid. Peeling up in through turn 1 as the sun continues to set. 8:03 p.m. local time here in Bathurst, New South Wales, Australia. Here at the Mount Panorama Circuit. Overtaking spots to be concerned with then. Start here along the mountain straight following turn 1. Very tight section, which we saw last season, can and often will produce massive incidents on the starting procedure for today's race. So that will be an area to watch out for. We've been given information of another pit lane start from that of Rivera, the number 20. Recent information then surrounding, just trying to get this one right here. Do we have a J Rivera? Yes, Jose Rivera, number 20. We do have actually 2 Riveras on the entry list, the other being Gabriel Rivera in the number 7, sadly not with us today, otherwise would have raced for Aston Martin. Overtaking spots then start on the mountain straight and make their way up through turn 2 into turns 3 and 4. Now you're going to have to be stacked right on top of each other to make your way side by side into this section and hopefully try to pull off an overtake. So making our way up and around the quarry corner here. This is going to be quite a large follow-through section for these drivers as it stands right now. Make our way through to Solomon, past the wall of death here on the right-hand side. We see from Ben Meredith, the manager of the ACC division of Euro Titans Endurance and one of the key members of that group in our Twitch chat at the moment, saying it's not too bad for Brooklyn Donkin considering he's delivered on 2nd place in qualifying. Starts right up alongside Galaxy here, who's firing on all 6 cylinders of his BMW. That Mustang and its driver only with an hour's sleep, I'm told. Well, that is quite concerning. Hopefully he doesn't nod off at the wheel. Down through here to Skyline. And again, this whole section is going to be very difficult to make overtakes on. So our major overtaking spots start right now at turn 2, but come up next here at turn 18. That whole follow through. Now, turns 3 and 4, I would say it's a so-and-so situation, but in terms of where we're going to see the bulk of it happen, it's going to be on the mountain and Conrod Straits. So as we exit turn 18 into turn 19, this is where overtaking will pick back up where it left off, just into turn 2. Heading up then the Conrod Straight. This is where we're going to see the best of performances from BMW, Lexus and Ford. Referring back then to our top speeds from last season. This, of course, came from Monza. Will be far more relevant towards the season finale, but it still gives us an indication here. The ones to watch are going to be primarily from Ford, BMW and Lexus. It is worth noting in the right setup, Ferrari can deliver on the same top-end speed, but it's very unlikely given the situation we find ourselves in today. That was mostly on assistance of aero. In terms of actual engine power, you'd be looking again at the big three, BMW, Lexus and Ford. But I wouldn't count out there Audi in the background. It's not data we often find ourselves presented with, as Audi and by proxy Lamborghini have been very rare sights in this championship. Making our way then to another major overtaking spot, the chase, here at turns 20 through 22. You can see peeling in now to the formation process. He's eager to go there. You can see Patrick Leger on his first race for 5-Star Esports since his maiden victory of the season outright in Imola's feature race last weekend. And this is an area we watch with bated breath here, folks. We're shaking to this sight of this start. And this is going to be, by and large, it's going to be heaven or hell for these drivers for the run up towards turn 1. Down towards the line, then we go here. 90 minutes against the clock. 26 cars in attendance for Season 6, Round 8 of the NLRL Sunday League here in Bathurst. And we are green and racing here in the land down under. A great start then right off the bat from Fake Galaxy to peel up and away from Brooklyn Donkin, but a greater start from behind there as we see from the second row. Patrick Leger holds off Zot Beefgarner. Does history have a knack of repeating itself? By my word, it is looking clean. It's finally looking clean. You know, have no idea how long we've waited to see that one. And a brilliant start from the number 17. No disasters here at turn 1. Only bliss for the number 17 as we head up in towards Griffins. Brooklyn Donkin leads in Bathurst down through turn 2, but a switchback now puts the 55 back in the commander's seat. What a switchback there from Fake Galaxy. A start of the ages for the Austrian talent. He won't be fooled again by the mountain. Further from behind then, we can see here from the point of view of this, I believe it's C. White. He's caught up behind that of Dimitri McLeon. Behind him then Sam Dicker, looking back up towards the rest of the order here inside the top 10. This is Declan Anderson from 9th, up in front of him Adrian Dewar, chasing down Tyler Vermack, who was in turn chasing down Zot Beefgarner, who was in turn chasing down Carlos Dish. We see out wide there, that's Beefgarner in the Lexus. Going around the outside goes that of Dewar. And that is a rarely sighted overtake down into Skyline. It would take a mistake there in McPhillamy to have made that one possible at all. In the background there, I believe that was the number 965. There's trouble down the order. Big trouble indeed there. You can see among them was Joseph Reyes. Still struggling to make out exactly what started that incident. We see the 777 caught there. That is Pedro Lopo. The 114 gingerly steps on by, and we see trying to get through there. It's the 314. That's Nick Lamming. That's where it started. Nick Lamming was squeezed in the S's. That is disaster. We see multiple casualties, among them the number 30, getting a look back up through the order, and rightfully so, because you can see brewing right behind at this time is a fight of the ages, but we do see trouble for the number 17. Brooklyn Donkin drops from the podium. Further behind, the 54 was taken into the grass. Still trying to catch our bearings on what precisely went on down the order there. The 9, oh my goodness, 927 and 222 in trouble. Ruben Pino and Sam Dicker. But also caught with them there was the number 54, was Carlos Dish. And that has been, albeit what wasn't a rough start on turn 1, has been a rough start everywhere else. So going to look through the order now to see that recent tumble for the 54. Carlos Dish, you can see swamped in at the moment. Nagolski and McLeon on his tail for the run up the mountain straight all the way down now to 14th in the opening laps of round 8. McLeon still holds the inside from Nagolski on the run up towards Griffins here at turn 2. Behind them, could there be a little bit of argy-bargy between the pair of them on the run up through turn 2? They're still side by side. Right behind them at the moment is Felix Schwab. Could be seeing some benefit from this upcoming fight. In towards the cuttings we go. Later on the brakes goes Nagolski to have that one away from McLeon. Back up through the order to see one of the closer fights here. Donkin v Van Velzen. So having dropped all the way from the podium now is Brooklyn Donkin. Had a great start, has not followed up since here. Now we find himself out of the top 3, closer to losing the top 5, because behind him right now, having made up 2 positions from the race start, is Tyler Vermaak. We said it before, it was a case where if qualifying could not deliver for him, he would have to try and find it on the race. Schumacher is in the pit lane. I think there was more trouble. Yes, there was. Number 67 now in trouble also. And we see multiple casualties there. Janus and Whitey caught at the Brock Skyline section there as the rest of the traffic tries to filter on through. We also see damage here for Felix Schwab. So all manner of thing going on down the order here. And I think for the case of the 241, we see here for Janus in the number 241, that could very well be the end of his time here in Bathurst. Trying to get the car turned around, but I think the front steering, the front axle, I should say, the steering therein is broken on that BMW. So try as he may, I don't know if he can actually get that car turned around. And he's back into the pit lane. I think that is likelier than not the end of his time here in Bathurst. Yellow flags cleared on the mountain. The 55 continues to lead. Leger in second, Van Velzen in third, Donkin in fourth. From behind, Vermaak in fifth. And then we get to see here the battle on sixth. Beefgartner versus Anderson in a moment, though, because the number 20 is now in trouble. Having a glance down the order, Jose Rivera, the number 20 Ferrari, had trouble down the order there. We see getting into the pit lane from behind him is TYT123 and the number 67 car. Back up through the field at the cuttings here. Galaxy trying to put some distance up over the Rookies Championship lead. Patrick Leger, who now stands in the overall top 5. Further down the line, though, there is definitely the great curiosity surrounding this ongoing fight here. Now, where Tyler Vermaak is trying to put distance over the 2 drivers behind him. You can see still squirreling around behind that of Zolt Beefgartner is Declan Anderson, second in the Rookies division over the course of this race right now. The Ferrari, currently 7th overall, is pursuing the Lexus with every fibre of his being, but he has to be careful for that drop down through Brock Skyline, because, of course, he is working with a bit of dirty air here, less aero pushing the nose to the ground. It does make the car a lot more skittish, I think is the word, down through that area of the track. And that's what's already led to quite a fair few incidents so far today. You see, closing on Cas Van Velzen here on the Conrod. That's Brooklyn Donkin, who started up on second, having dropped 2 positions in the time since. See the drivers who started on that back row of a 26-car grid. Now already 3 cars out of this race. We see multiple drivers in the pit lane here. Vereth, Schumacher, Whitey, and as we see here leaving is Felix Schwab. In terms of closest fights, we are seeing plenty brewing. Dish v Nagolski, as Dish is back in the top 10 very quickly, so he's done very, very well to turn that one around. Beefgartner v Vermaak, and then of course Donkin v Van Velzen. That's got to catch on board, though, with that Lexus pursuing Tyler Vermaak at this time. Going to catch on with the man in the middle, the 599. Caught between a rock and a hard place here. Anderson at his rear, Vermaak on his nose. This is not an easy place to be if you're in the 599. Lexus, currently driven then by Zolt Beefgartner. Hungarian talent's been around the block many a time here on the Sunday League, has yet to falter from his position at Lexus. And this machine, now well over a decade in service to GT3, still beats strong on this track, going toe-to-toe with the 296 and the 720S cars only introduced in the last couple of years. An immortal machine then, the Lexus RCF, as he continues to fight here, pushing and squeezing closer to the chance of 5th. May have to consider his options in a defense of 6th, though, as Tyler Vermaak continues to gain momentum. Out through McPhillamy, an area where he already saw a little bit of trouble on that first lap. Beefgartner gets a little bit squirrelish there down through. It's such a sketchy section of the track to watch from these overhead shots of the drivers, because it's a scary thing just how quickly the stability can nosedive, and it has happened in behind. We do have a yellow flag on the mountain once again. I believe this time looks to be, is it the number 20? It is, and Rivera is out. Number 30 now in the pit lane, that's Verith, now also out, dropping like flies. You see here an ongoing fight here with McLeon and Alexander. And this has been, I must say, it's more of a bloodbath than the doubleheader. Ongoing fight then, Van Velzen v Donkin. As Donkin now gets the leg up over Van Velzen, so he's back on the podium. Silver lining here for that of Brooklyn Donkin, having put himself back up to third. Meanwhile, in the progress for Anderson's fight with Beefgartner and subsequently Beefgartner v Vermaak, still in stalemate as they head up onto lap 4. Leading that charge then in the foreground, now zipping away, the number 55 of Fake Galaxy. Looking to finally put to bed a story over a season old now, as it would be, from season 5, round 4. Finally proving that he can master the mountain. Heading up through to turn 1. McLeon overtaken there by Alexander for 12th place. Next in Alexander's iron sights will be Luca Tamburini, ITAM Racing Porsche number 813 up in front. Having a glance in here. Things still building on that fight for 5th place. Same story for the retaliation for Van Velzen v Donkin, though, as we could come to expect here, an inner team fight, far less likely to bear the same fangs as a rivalry fight between TSRC and 5-Star. TSRC, who through this one here, Zolt Beefgartner has seen their team currently in the order there. Anderson in the wall. Number 28 in trouble. We just caught it a little bit off the screen there, but that was Declan Anderson spiraling to the wall. The back end carried away from him. Number 28 in the barriers. Yellow flag still out at the moment. He's got to get moving as the rest of the field catches up to him. That was the, I believe, the number 965 on our screens that we just saw there. Into the wall with the number 28, hit it hard as well. So, oh, in the live footage, did you see it there? At the S's. We're going to have to get an instant replay of an instant replay. How on earth's that going to work? Look in the bottom right, I believe it was. Hang on, just a moment. We've got to turn the live footage off. There. What on earth was that? In the pit lane then, Declan Anderson vanquished from Bathurst. That's the first time we've ever had to get a replay of a replay to get the footage out of that one. Donkin now sets his sights on Leger. This could be a rather interesting one. Still going on during this time is Beefgartner versus Vermaak. And the pit lane is now lined with destroyed machines. There out wide went Vermaak, so Beefgartner's got the grounds for it to go up to P5, gets up at ahead of the McLaren, who now gets unlapped by Felix Schwab. This has been a horror show so far here in Bathurst. Nagolski v Deesh at this time. He sets his sights there on Jus Leonard Bonker out in front. 55 still leading that charge. Let's go to catch on board the Battle of the Mustangs here. V8 Thunder on the mountain. Very familiar soundtrack then to the locals as the V8s roar through Bathurst once again. Following on then with Brooklyn Donkin. Number 17 on the charge. Looking to go toe-to-toe with the number 9. The rookies lead then. Number 9, Patrick Leger of 5-Star Esports. This is a sight to behold here, folks. Looking on for the fight of second. Supposedly from internal conversations. Oh, never mind, the number 5. That was Felix Schwab, but now out of this race. He's back to the pit lane. And another casualty claimed here is where we started at 26 cars. We're down to 19, soon to be down to 18 cars. That is horrifying to see that Bathurst has already claimed so many. What started as a pretty sizable grid, now dropping like flies here as drivers continue to be taken away. No less than 15 minutes into today's race. Also in the pit lane at this time, I believe, is Reyes of VEC Esports. So the casualty list only continues to grow here in Bathurst. A deeply concerning thing to see at this time. Looking then on for what could be the retaliatory fight here from Vermaak's point of view as he catches up to Zolt Beefgartner. Of course, still working with over 30 kilos of additional ballast in this round of the championship. Now, he's had of mixed opinions running in towards today. Of two minds about today's race, but he is still soldiering on inside of that top 10 at this time. You see for Nagolski, he is really starting to put quite a fair deal of pressure onto Carlos Deesh. He was a very early casualty. He was taken out down at the chase on the first couple of laps of round 8. It seems that Deesh now afflicted by the Bathurst curse, more so than his teammate, the number 55 of Fake Galaxy. Up and around turn 2 we go. We are made aware number 67 had a bit more bother there off the exit of the chase, but gets back up and going. So as it stands, we do find ourselves presented with a multitude of major fights. Down through Skyline we go here with the 2 Mustangs on the podium as Fake Galaxy now continues to disappear upstream. Oh my goodness, did you see the slide there from behind from Cas van Velzen? Goodness gracious me. This could be quite a fair deal of trouble for Tyler Vermaak because, of course, yes, he still holds the lead of the championship and is currently outscoring Carlos Deesh, who was the closest driver to him on the run-in towards tonight's round of the championship. But it is worth noting on that current standings, just bringing that back up, the nearest driver outside of that would be Zolt Beefgarner. He's only 5.5 points behind Carlos Deesh heading in towards this round of the championship. So with Beefgarner being up in front of him at this time, it's not going to be doing him many favors. Now, of course, it is going to take a lot more than this to whittle down a 58-point gap. Point is still there, though. You now see this one here, Nagolski. Now in behind Carlos Deesh. Was that? I think that was trouble. Oh my goodness, there. Babonka nearly takes himself out. We see the numbers there. It's a bit of a grim sign at the moment here in Bathurst. I am quite surprised. Nagolski, as it would appear, also has front-end damage. That's worth noting also. Going to catch back on board the fight of the Mustangs. Oh, as he bumps the wall there off of Griffins. He's got to keep tidy over the next hour and 15 minutes here if he wants that second place, because driving like that is only going to put the Mustang closer and closer to that wall, if not in it, by the end of this race. Up through Quarry. We'll leave you on board here for just a moment with Brooklyn Donkin as he continues to pursue Patrick Leger. Back to you in a moment. Still on board then with the battle of the Mustangs for second place. Now, as we head in past the first 15 minutes of round 8 of the championship and what has been a bloodbath in Bathurst, we see the grid thinned out from what was 26 cars to, as it stands right now, the scope of only some 17 operational machines remaining, a casualty rate of 9 cars out of this 26 car starting grid. So, taking a look at it at the moment, Fake Galaxy leads by 4.67 seconds over Patrick Leger, who currently fends off Brooklyn Donkin for the podium positions. He leads the rookies, mind you, in the number 9 5-star esports Mustang, of which, previously driven by Carlos Deesh last season, saw dominance in the doubleheader. Cas van Velzen makes 4th, with Zolt Beefgarner holding off Tyler Vermaak for 5th. Vermaak having dropped down to 6th. Carlos Deesh recuperates ground, now up to 7th, after falling down the order to what was as low as 14th, following an incident on the opening lap of the race down at the chase. Nagolski in 8th, Bonka in 9th, and Alexander rounds out the top 10. Tamburini in 11th, with McLeon in 12th, Cheeseman in 13th. And we see for Ruben Pino of Talkline Motorsports, one of the several new additions to the grid, currently 14th. Nick Lamming is in the pit lane. Now, we saw him to be a very early casualty in today's event. We see him in the pit lane once again with damage number 87. Now back into the pit. Pedro Lopo will move up by looks of it to 15th place in the number 777 Talkline Porsche. From what was originally 16th, TYT in 17th, Joseph Reyes looks to be out of this race, bringing our tally to 17 remaining operational vehicles. What started as one of the closest fights here after bobbing up and down the podium order. Brooklyn Donkin back on the podium, now fighting for second to reinstate that Euro Titans 1-2. 19 minutes into this race today. Still an hour and 11 left to go. Closest fight at this time has been one that has been held stiffly here between the 102 and the 54. Nagolski v. Deesh. Kieran Nagolski now second in the rookies after the first 19, nearly 20 minutes of racing today. With Jus Leonard Bonker of Keck Sim Racing, one of a number of new additions to the grid, currently holding a division third, 9th overall, and you can see from behind he is being intercepted by Alan Alexander, now into that top 10. One of Alexander's greatest feats of the season was a win from towards the back of the field at the third of 3 races in Indianapolis. In variable conditions, it was quite the thing to behold here for Alexander. Again, the second ever driver to win with Bentley, the first of which being Hayden Prodger in Alton Park last season at the finale round, season 5, round 10. Clipping the wall of death there, the number 17 rockets down through as we do get the confirmation of Reyes' withdrawal from season 6, round 8. After what has been a brutal outing so far in the first 20 minutes of racing here in Bathurst. Nothing short of brutality. Watching here with Donkin down through Forest's elbow. Down the Conrod straight. Right now is struggling to keep the distance with Patrick Leger. 0.8 of a second, and it's held at that. These two, of course, both weighing in with the same advantage for tonight's round of the championship. Both of them with the Mustang. Both of them relatively unaffected by the success ballast. Now, Leger will be seeing some significant rises with a multitude of podiums. As for Donkin as well, has seen a few, but both of them, as it would appear on track, seem relatively unaffected. You see here brewings of a new fight. The two Talkline cars, 14th up for grabs. 927 and 777 through to McPhillamy Park, now down through Skyline. See here for the 777. And it's quite clever there what we see from Pedro Lopo. He's getting the braking done in a straight line. We saw that was the error made by Declan Anderson. He was braking and turning at the same time at the time of his incident. He slammed the wall, then slammed the S's. And sadly, by the looks of it, I think is not mistaken, out of this race. A lot of multiple drivers to be afflicted by this. We also see another fight on the brewing here. We see Luca Tamburini versus Dimitro McLeon. Currently 11th up for grabs from Tamburini's point of view. Now, this would stand as a Division 4 for the rookies. Heading up and out of turn 1. Behind them, Ben Cheeseman. Getting a look back up at the head of the field here on the podium in the fight between Leger and Donkin as the sun continues to set here in Bathurst. Back on with Donkin. Looking to put himself ever closer. If he can get into the slipstream here, he can start to intercept Patrick Leger. He is a lot closer than he was in the last lap by about 3 tenths as it stood from the Forest elbow. So now, from what was 8 tenths last lap, now half a second onto this one here, lap 10. Closing in, you can see that gap start to come down. 4 tenths, 3 tenths as we enter the chase. Through turn 20, now onto the brakes into turn 21 and 22. Very late onto the brakes there for Donkin to bring things closer in his fight for second place. And the last lap just gone clear by nearly half a second. Brooke Donkin really has the chance to go for that second place spot here. Getting closer and closer. He's been chipping away at the confidence of the car in front for quite some time. But Leger's held strong. He's gone toe-to-toe with Vermac for the last week. And nearly 2 weeks, actually. I think it would stand to try and aim for that overall race win. We see there, going for the outside. A little bit of contact nearly to the wall. Can he hold it? Yes, he can. Is the tiniest bout of contact there to watch on the replays as they head up through towards the cuttings. You can see here, this is from the third person view. already committing to the outside line. So Donkin later of the two onto the brakes. Now, this was marginal by probably about a few tenths, if that. Just gets a little bit close there. Back end gets tapped, and obviously under the brakes, the car's already got a lot of load onto the nose. The back end's light. If you get tapped there, it's very difficult to regain control of the car without putting yourself in the wall. So he's done, I would say, remarkably well to stay on that ground. He does, however, lose out the chances to fight for second and actually finds himself thrust into the chance to defend third from his own teammate, Cas van Velzen. Going to catch on board with Van Velzen. This is a sight we've been waiting to see here. Van Velzen takes on the mountain once again. That Porsche as rowdy as ever. This is going to be a quite exciting fight if I had to gauge it there. Another thing worth noting, we saw from one of the viewers in chat mention this as well. On that replay in the collision between Donkin and Leger, Leger looked to have gone up on the curb. So it was all the way to the inside there. As you can see, the front end just duck up a little bit just before the contact. Watching here, though, with Cas van Velzen now thrust into the chances to enter the podium. The number one in pursuit. Through Murray's difference in line there, but the Mustang holding ground. There is still that ongoing fight. Demetrio McLeon versus, I believe, Luca Tamburini. And it's now since flipped on its head because McLeon's back ahead of Tamburini. 17 cars remain then after nearly half an hour's worth of racing. 25 minutes strong here. You can see signalling to one side there. Yes, he's letting his teammate on by. So Van Velzen is not in a battle for third. He's not fighting for third. He's being given third. We see a bit of coordination going on here. Obviously, with Donkin having been knocked down a peg following that contact down at Griffin's in the last lap just gone, he's effectively signalled there. Now, I don't know what their communications are looking like, but if I had to guess, just off of body language and what the cars were doing, there's a case where he was saying, you take point, I'll follow, catch up to that Leger. Heading up through Quarry, that's precisely what Van Velzen aims to do here. Clips past the wall of death, and that was, I believe we saw the car pitching a little bit there because the wider back end on the Porsche, wider at the rear axle than it is at the front, just rubs the wall. So we head down through Skyline into the S's. You can see these two working as a single unit on the run down through towards Forest Delbo. Behind them, Salt Beef Garner and Tyler Vermack now having since separated on their chances to fight for 5th place, though I imagine by the end of this race we will be seeing that come up once again. In the pit lane at the moment, the 114 of Ben Cheeseman now in the paddock. We've seen, even on the longer endurance races, that the Mount Panorama circuit has been a wrathful, indiscriminate force of nature in whose race it takes away. We see here for Donkin very late onto the brakes, but you can see deliberately holding off. He's pulling punches there, not trying to overtake Van Velzen because he wants Van Velzen to lead him through. He believes then, having run a quick analysis of things, you know, almost channeling their inner 2010s Ferrari. It was a case where Van Velzen was faster than you. Please acknowledge that you understand this. They are working together rather than working against each other, so that is worth considering. Nearly some 30 minutes in on round 8 of the championship. Our next 2 stops this season, though, as we just quickly catch on here with Alan Alexander now having firmly worked his way into that top 10. 9th place as it stands right now. Having a quick glimpse at that calendar. Our last 2 stops of the season over the next 2 weeks will be at the Red Bull Ring for another sprint and feature, and then at Monza for a triple header event to decide the championship. Well, plenty of drama for today's event. Who knows what the next 2 weeks is going to hold for us here on the finale run for Season 6, the NLRL Sunday League. We are in the end of days here for Season 6. Season 7 coming up around the corner. And we were given confirmation a while ago, just speaking about some of the other developments here on NLRL. Of course, some of you may have seen in the server the announcements surrounding an upcoming iRacing series with the NLRL Cup Series over for NASCAR, of which we are set to cover here on TRTN later this year. And now that has been pushed forward a few weeks from the end of July to around the early days of, if not middle of August. I haven't been given an exact date here, but we have been told it's been delayed just to make sure everyone can sign up properly. So if you've not heard it already, please go and do that if you haven't already. Going to catch on board then with the developments of other fights around the track at this time. McLeon trying to unlap himself from, lap past this one here, that being Nick Lamming. It has been a rough day for the number 87. Was a very early casualty in Bathurst. As the sun continues to set here, visibility is going to become a greater concern for the rest of the field. Now, bear in mind, all of those incidents happened where they could still see each other. Who knows what's going to happen here with the sun away from sight? Bay Galaxy leads by double figures now as he just pushes past 10 seconds from Patrick Leger. Last round's feature race winner. Fake Galaxy looking for his first win of the season. Now, to remind you of how far we've come along in this season thus far, it's been wins primarily for Mack and Deesh, but we have seen sprinklings of victories there for Alan Alexander, Cas van Velsen, and Jared Vermeulen, with the most recent one being for Patrick Leger, who have been, on that time, a 5-time consecutive Rookies winner. He has taken a stranglehold of the Rookies Championship this season, so it's any surprise he got picked up by 5-Star Esports in their efforts to try and push back towards taking the grand prize of things in this series, going for it all. The Drivers and Teams Championship, they're still building up into that one. It has been quite a rapid development, but they have got a long road to travel on if they mean to challenge this team here. Euro Titans, last season's Teams Champion, last season's Drivers Champion as well was that of Cas van Velsen racing for Euro Titans. Last season's Rookies Champion was Carlos Deesh, who had transferred from 5-Star to Euro Titans by the end of that season. They had it all in Season 5. Right now, they have only the Teams Championship. The Drivers Championship in the Rookies is led by Patrick Leger, who's been snatched up by 5-Star. And currently, before the end of this round at the moment, the overall Drivers Championship is led by Tyler Vermack. They've got the numbers. And certainly today they've got the driver. But will they have a chance to challenge that Drivers' Championship once again? Only time will reveal the answers. We cross past the first 30 minutes of racing here in Bathurst, and having a glance across the field at the moment, Fake Galaxy leads from Patrick Leger. Cas van Velsen makes third. Zolt Beefgartner in fourth. We do take note of the fact that Brooklyn Donkin has come in to the pits. Now 8th place. He's tucked up behind here, I think attempting to get on by Nick Lamming in the number 87 Mustang on his way down through to Forest Cell, but the yellow flags are out in front of him there. Dimitri McLeon's about 1.5 seconds behind. He's 9th place at this time. And in 10th is that of Ruben Pino. Pedro Lopo of Talkline Motorsports finds himself in 11th. Kieran Nagolski in 12th. Luca Tamburini in 13th. We see here for Jus Leonard Bonker in 14th. Ben Cheeseman in the pits at the moment, having dropped from 15th, now 16th, and possibly down to 17th. Depends on how long you'll be in the pit lane. Lamming in 15th, Cheeseman 16th, and Whitey in 17th. Running the calculations for if they can wrap up the Teams Championship today. At the request there of Ben Meredith in chat, I'm not entirely sure. I think it might be a case where it can be wrapped up by the Red Bull Ring, but when you consider there is, as it would stand, 5 scoring opportunities left in this championship over the next 2 weeks, with a sprint and feature next week in the Red Bull Ring, and then 3 20-minute sprint races as part of the triple header at the season finale 2 weeks from now in Monza. I would say there's still too many variables to consider, and I wouldn't say they could wrap it up here. They can certainly give it a very good go. .58 minutes left here in Bathurst, and things have grown rather tepid on this grid following a fiery start that saw multiple major incidents starting down at the S's, then in towards the chase. It's worth noting, as part of the regulations this season, it's the top 3 drivers per race that can score for a given team. So given Euro Titans' disposition at the moment, they'll find first, third, and then scrolling down there to find 6th. From Galaxy, Van Velsen and Deesh. Star-studded lineup, mind you, as well. As for 5-Star, it would come from Leger, Vermack, and then way down the line there towards Cheeseman. But as it stands, Cheeseman down in 17th place. If he retires from this race, which it looked likely to have been the case that this is a much more extended tenure in the pit lane. If he retires from this race, that cuts down their point scoring opportunities by 33%, leaving just Leger and Vermaat to put points on the table for 5-star heading out of Bathurst. And where it's worth noting, leading by, I believe, a little over 200 points, Euro Titans does certainly have the chance. The 5-star, by looks of it, is going to fight them every step of the way until the season finale in a fortnight's time. So as we step ever closer to the chances of a leading pack of cars into the pit lane here, we are stepping closer to the midway of today's race. That will come up as it stands right now in about, as it would look, 11 minutes time. Now we have seen undercuts of the midway for earlier strategies by upwards of 7 minutes. So really we'd be looking at it, if he was going for an earlier pit strategy, we'd be looking at it in the next 2 laps. We would be thinking closer to getting things in about 5 minutes before the midway on this race, where the rest of the grid will look to pile in. We see both the Torque Line cars are now in the pit lane, so Pino and Lopo both in. Number 927 comes to a stop first of the two, then the 777 will join him from the paddock at 10th and 11th, but Nagolski will push them down a peg and will be among a list of drivers to do so. Nagolski into the top 10 in the number 102. BMW heading up the hill. Luca Tamburini still off the exit here of the Forest Elbow. He's on the Conrod, so will he be able to push the Torque Line team down an extra position on track here to what could be, as it stands at the moment, 12th and 13th? Right now, it's going to be close. I can certainly tell you that much here, because when you come in and you take this open-ended strategy where realistically you've got a very short tenure in the pit lane if you want to, otherwise new tyres, which will take upwards of 25 seconds. We see at the moment, Pino's off the jacks. Lopo isn't yet, so Lopo's going to lose his ground to Tamburini. Pino just escapes the Argentinian there off the exit of turn 1. You can see the rocketing around Hell Corner is Luca Tamburini, now right on the trails here of Ruben Pino in the number 927 Ferrari. Looking up the order here, this has been one that's been chipped away at for some time, as the gap between Beefgarner and Vermaat. Now, they have held this one in armistice for the last couple of laps right now. 1.8 seconds in the last interval between each other as they head down through Skyline. Galaxy continuing to lead as we just cut past him there to go and look in. As it's worth noting here, watching from Leger's angle, he's now having to navigate traffic. This could be a major concern for the leading ensemble. And this has been a routine thorn in the side in the top 5 for the for any race as it would stand here in Bathurst. Just a moment, the 54 is in trouble. If I'm not mistaken, that's Carlos Diesch. Diesch in jeopardy. The Audi is in the wall. Can he get back up and going? Yes, he can, but he has damage. You can see it there. Significant damage as the car buckles and yields under the brakes. That could see him very swiftly into the pit lane. You can start to get an understanding there of the state of disrepair just as the car buzzes on by. We can see that the bonnet is slightly open. He's swerving all over the road, so the steering's broken. You can see something's not quite connecting there in the Audi. Having to make these little adjustments along the straight. There is definitely a broken steering system here on the number 54. Yellow flags now subside to green. The 54 is in significant trouble. Carlos Diesch, who last season took not 1 but 2 of his maiden victories here in Bathurst in his time with Ford and 5-Star Esports, now in significant trouble with Audi. Tries to get himself slowed down here. We see now into the paddock goes the 54, and now he comes into the light. We can start to see that front end dragging low. That is a horrible, horrible look for the Audi at this time. The front end completely mangled after its impact down at Skyline. Also joining him then is Jus Leonard Bonker, and having just come into the pits there from behind him, was that? It was That was the number 17. Was that not the number 17? Who was that coming into the pits from behind him? There was a driver that just magicked up there behind, and now we're down a driver. Was that Bonker? I think it was. Well, that is frankly brutal. Down to 16 cars. It's not a great look, I'll say. But this is really, of any track that was going to thin out the herd, it was going to be Bathurst. It was either this or the Nordschleife, and we've already had that this season. The drivers have already faced hard enough of a hardship. Heading up through Quarry, we see here the two battling for 11th. Ruben Pino versus Luca Tamburini. Tamburini's feeling brave there, was looking for the inside on the run through to that of McPhillamy. That's got to catch on board with Luca Tamburini. This could be a very exciting one to watch here. The ongoing fight for 11th. On board with ITAM Racing's Luca Tamburini. The 813 in hot pursuit. On Ruben Pino in the wall, there goes the Ferrari. Does it collect the Porsche? No, it doesn't. But very recent drama there, ping-ponging off the walls, doing his best impression of Chaz Mostert at the 2015 Bathurst 1000. Was the 927 of Ruben Pino. You can see here, gets onto the brakes, back end tilts in on him there, bounces to one, bounces to another, and in the background bounces back onto the same. That's trouble for Ruben Pino, but it has given a free position here over to Luca Tamburini, so I'm not imagining the Argentinian will be complaining too greatly. Still in the pit lane then, the number 54, as he now leaves. So Carlos Disch, having been patched up, now back out on the field. He's still in the top 10, so the Euro Titans team can breathe somewhat of a sigh of relief, but they still have quite the thick of it to deal with. 50.5 minutes of racing still here on the mountain before the end of round 8. Luca Tamburini now holds his nerve from 11th, having been fortunate to have avoided the collateral of that incident out in front of him. Taking a look further up through the order, still no updates then from that top 3 outside of what was a while ago a run to the pit lane there for Brooklyn Donkin. Donkin will be sizing up his chances for a podium, but as he came into the pits, he was, if I remember rightly here, in 4th behind Cas van Veltzen. 50 minutes left to go, so we've got about 5 minutes before the midway. This would be the ideal zone for an earlier strategy. We'll see what Galaxy chooses to do. He stays out, so next thoughts would then fall to that of Leger in the number 9. You can see all the reasonings as to why he was taken in under the wing of the 5-star esports team. He certainly has the making of championship material here, leading the Rookies Championship for Ford in the number 9. And has not buckled under what was extreme pressure in the start of that race. Still holds now at his 2nd place. Van Veltzen is in. So a curiosity there. Cas van Veltzen's into the pit lane. Zolt Beefgartner will stay out. Tyler Vermaak joins him from the pit lane there. So these two playing things a little bit more tactically today. As for Alexander, if I had to take a wild guess at to what the strategy is going to look like here for Alexander, much as we've seen the same for O'Driscoll and Rod earlier this season, as these three follow on the same strategy, it would be much more of a forward strat for him. He's going to try and push for a later pit stop, trying to maximize the distance he can get in that first stint, because he's already had to do plenty enough, having started from the back of what was a 26-car grid on that 13th row, now 6th, now 4th. Up in front of him then. That's the Audi, if I'm not mistaken, of Carlos Disch, who I believe unlaps himself from Van Veltzen and Vermaak. Speaking of, Van Veltzen's off the jacks, Vermaak following swiftly thereafter. Now, I believe for these drivers, well, yes, it was an open strategy, as we were told by race control. More often than not, we're seeing the drivers take brand new tyres on. We see there, emerging side by side with his fellow Porsche. That is, I believe, that of, I want to say that's Luca Tamburini with him there. No, as a matter of fact. Yes, it is. No, it is Luca Tamburini. Sorry, the cameras weren't particularly the greatest at tracking, but we do see here, side by side between the Porsches, but Van Veltzen holds his ground up towards turn 2 at Griffin's Bend. Into the wall, there goes Luca Tamburini. Misjudged his braking distance there, backs up right onto the nose of Brooklyn Donkin in the number 17 car. Getting up past him. Right now for Vermaak, that strategy is struggling, and so too is the tremendous amount of weight under success ballast for the McLaren. Of course, when he goes multiple times on the trot for wins, he was not exactly going to be too surprised to find how much that success ballister climbs from behind him there. That, I believe, yes, was the Ferrari of Ruben Pino, who clipped the wall of death. There is trouble down the line. I am told there is trouble. The 777, I believe it was here. Two cars going slow. Among them, yes, the 114 and the 777. It seems to have resolved itself. The run now through to McPhillamy Park. Heading down through Skyline. And Cheeseman later of the two on the brakes there. That's the 114 pursuing him from behind, attempting to unlap Lopo. He's 3 laps down. He looks to see things out to the rest of this race. Coming up on the halfway mark in a moment's time. Still no word from that top 4. Galaxy still stays out. Patrick Leger stays at his P2. Recently up to 3rd, then Beefgartner. No word yet, but we'll be coming to see it not too long from now. Alexander had the latest of opportunities, but didn't take it on this lap. Stays out onto lap 21. Behind him there, the Audi of number 54. Carlos Disch in 10th. Dimitri McLeon, also one of these 5 drivers, yet to have seen the pit lane. He'll stay out. Behind him at this time is the McLaren. Now, I want to say, looking in behind there, that is the 114, looking to unlap himself. Now, nearest on consideration to a pit lane run would be this one here. So, is he looking to play things a little bit more forward today? Knowing if he comes in earlier, that increases the risk of coming out into traffic. Albeit on a fairly sparsely populated grid from where it started. We're now down 10 cars since the race start, which is frankly shocking. Most of those were brand new names. Now, there are still a few that remain on this grid that are still seeing their first ever races here on the Sunday League. Both the Talkline cars are ones that spring to mind almost immediately. A rarely sighted driver is Nagolski. We've seen him on a handful of occasions. He's still with us today. T. Whitey, this is the first time we've seen him also. And he stays on the grid. Recently into the pit lane goes Zolt Beefgartner.
We are halfway through. Keep it up.
Where we were celebrating earlier today what was a really high number of sign-ups. There were over 40 sign-ups to this championship, and we were quite surprised to see so many show up. But this has really thinned out the herd. I mean, you've got to look at it from their angle as well. What was necessarily the thought process of joining up into a series, joining at its most difficult round of the championship, and then being surprised when you get plastered against the wall? It is not a friendly track to beginners to this series, especially if you're learning the grid. I would say I wouldn't even have blamed them if they didn't even show up today and showed up at Red Bull Ring. Oh well, you can't fault someone for the tenacity of wanting to get on the grid as soon as possible, but it is rather disappointing to see how quickly it thinned out. We were within 15 minutes and already lost 7 cars. That is just the kind of madness that Bathurst produces. The Bathurst curse is something of very real nature. Galaxy now in, so was playing things just a little bit half the halfway mark. We now find ourselves nearest to the pit lane entry. Will be that still with one to serve here is Patrick Leger. Will he be following Galaxy in, being the real question? You see, he definitely floated the idea as he mounted the crest. We did see that little twitch to the left. He was thinking about it. I think he's going to try and run a little bit of a counter strategy here. At the very least, it's going to go 1 lap over, then into the pits, but he'll stay out to move into the race lead on his first race with 5-star. Now, it's worth noting this was normally quite the advantage to the 5-star team. Of course, they took both wins in last visit to Bathurst at the hands of Carlos Disch during his time with the team, also having driven for Ford, also against less than beneficial BOP. So a lot of the same makings of that performance as one we find here in Leger, but with Galaxy this fired up, this scorned by last season's results at Bathurst, I think it's going to be a very tough call for them to find the grounds to take this off him. Going to catch on board then. This is the latest of fights in development at the moment. It's Tyler Vermack finally having caught up to Zolt Beefgartner. These two have held quite a hefty gap between one another. Up in front, Donkin is about a second away from his teammate Cas van Milton. So here comes a curiosity. Where exactly does this fight go next? Number 87 and number 102 in trouble. The leading number 9, I believe, has run up into them there, having to avoid down through McPhillamy and Skyline. Is that damage for Leger? It is! It's damage! I don't believe what I'm seeing here, folks. You join us now. We've just seen a party of 2 join us from Bayer Racing. You join us at the scene of disaster. Patrick Leger has, in the same cruel fate that took Galaxy out of the chances for a race win, been afflicted by oncoming traffic. The 102, as it would stand, of Kieran Nagolski. Now, albeit not sure how much control Nagolski had at McPhillamy, regardless, he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and that comes to both parties here. The number 7 with significant damage. We are seeing a horrific reprisal of history here in Bathurst from last season just gone, where we saw much the same plight to the race lead. Albeit for Leger, he stayed out to take this lead away from Fate Galaxy, who I think now has dodged fate, perhaps for the last time. Into the pit lane, and we're about to see coming into the light then the real scope of damage to the Leger's Mustang. This could forfeit him the cost of that top 5 entirely. Dimitro McLeon's in the pit lane at the moment, serving his pit stop, so he's unlikely to find himself up into a division second of the rookies. Leger will likely then still hold the cards on this one, but watching him come into his pit box here, it is a grim sight for the Mustang. You can see, much as we saw for Carlos Deech not too long ago, the front end hanging low. That is a borderline inoperable Mustang. Galaxy's back into the lead. We see continuing to stay out, playing this more forward strategy as Alan Alexander behind him. Down in 9th place is Carlos Deech, now unlapping himself from Patrick Leger. Cas van Velzen looks likely to move up in toward the run of a 3rd place spot. Now, I just want to quickly go back in to see here, because we had to cut away from their fight. Now it has quickly distanced itself since. It was 2 tenths in the last time we checked between Vermac and Beefgarner. Now nearly a full second here, 3/4 of a second across the line we go. Now 1.5. So that has been some real trouble. And I think, yes, we have just been given the information there. We're now down to 14 vehicles with the withdrawal of Kieran Nagolski, the number 87 still in the pit lane, the number 67 in with. I think we're about to see, by and large, one of the worst finishes we've ever seen. And this really does come as quite the shock. Bathurst is a polarizing track, mind you. We can even produce some of the best races of the season or some of the worst in its history. We see there, nearly snapping to the wall, was Brooklyn Donkin, continuing to hemorrhage distance from Cas van Velzen in terms of Vermac v Beefgarner. That's bled away to now over a 1.5 seconds, 1.612 in the last interval. The last to see the pit lane here is this one, Alan Alexander. I think rightfully so there. The complaints in chat from Race Control, from 50 sign-ups to 12 running cars, is actually crazy. I think there's definitely got to be a word forward here from Race Control to those sign-ups, that if you're going to be just taking up the spot and not being able to show up to the race. Now, it's fine if you've signed out. We know of the drivers who've signed out. We can see them. We know which one among you have signed out. But if it comes from 50 sign-ups down to 12 remaining vehicles in this race, I think there's definitely got to be somewhat of a conversation surrounding, well, A, driver etiquette, because how on earth did the pack thin out to nearly, as it would stand here, 13 cars down if Lamming retires? As it stands right now, and this is a startling statistic, we have more viewers in the chat at the moment than there are drivers on this track. And a third of those remaining runners are from one team. As right now, we see in the ashes of that recent trouble for Patrick Leger. Now, whilst he still continues to lead rookies, he's relegated of the top 5. As it stands right now, it's a 1, 2, 3, 4 for Euro Titans. See, they're narrowly avoiding the wall at Quarry. Alan Alexander up through to Frog Hollow, then to Reed Park, then past the Wall of Death. Now Solomon into McPhillamy. Down through Skyline we go. So right now, as it seems to be the case now, presiding over this grid, survival above all else in today's race. It is a deeply, deeply concerning thing then, how quickly that's descended out of control for so many today. Now, of course, there are always going to be incidents in a race. That's a given, but that is quite shocking. 26 cars from the start. We were anticipated 15 more that just never responded. So it could have been a grid upwards of 41 cars today. 26 showed up. And now, operationally speaking, we're in the scope of about 13 remaining. Cross the line there, Dimitro McLeon. Seeing here what could be some close action. 2 seconds in equilibrium here between Donkin, Beefgartner and Vermaak, on either side of which, from the 599's point of view, they're not too far off a distance either from Cas van Belsen. So that's 4 cars between each other, 2 seconds apart. "35 minutes left to go then, so beyond the halfway mark on this race. Now 10 minutes on top of that. The last to see the pit lane right now will be this one here, Alan Alexander. The question remains, with a lot of uncertainty now resting over the grid, what is going to be the strategy coming forward? We predicted it was going to be much more of a forward aggressive strategy. He was going to play for a shorter second stint of this, trying to go as late as he possibly can to the pit lane to maximize the distance traveled. We know that the Bentley is good for it in terms of the long distance. We'll see though as he makes his way down past the pit entry, doesn't go for it on lap 27. So heading up in towards lap 26, now heading up in towards lap 27. Into the pit lane at the moment comes the 54. It's damage again. Carlos Dish has more damage this time around. Into the pit lane comes the Audi, looking much the same as the last time it came to the pits. And this has been a disastrous day here, or I suppose a disastrous night, more relevantly, for this one here. The 54, last season's Bathurst doubleheader winner, has seen nothing short of disaster today. Could that be the writing on the wall for his time spent with Audi? Of course, we saw earlier this season the transfer be made for the 55. Fake Galaxy, who started the season off with Audi, moved to BMW, and you can see it is not something he regrets at all, because he doesn't find himself plighted with the same problems of the Audi at this time. In fact, he couldn't be feeling any better by looks of it today. This has been an exemplary performance. Possibly one of the best drives we've ever seen in Bathurst. It's just a pity then the rest of the grid does not reflect what has been this proper stuff of heroism from the Austrian talent. He had a score to settle with this circuit and has done so diligently over what has nearly been the case here of a full hour's worth of racing so far, with still a half hour left to go. It has been war here in Bathurst. Nothing short, nothing more, nothing less. Upcoming then fight we see here, it's the battle on the V8s, 5.4 versus 5.4. The 599 versus the 17. Zolt Beefgartner's in pursuit. Let's go to catch on board with that Lexus as we now start to see the brewings of more action here in Bathurst, but it's one they'll tread lightly on, as we do get word the 315 is now into the pit lane just during this time. So now in comes Alan Alexander. Let's go to catch on with that Lexus before it's too late here. Brooklyn Donkin versus Zolt Beefgartner. Beefgartner, who has been a veteran to this grid for the last few seasons, has spent his entire time with Lexus. The older of the 5.4s, now toe-to-toe with the 7th generation Ford Mustang of Brooklyn Donkin, a recent transfer of his, moving back to Ford from BMW. And like we saw for his teammate, Fate Galaxy, it has been a decision absolutely worth making. Continuing to follow on board then with Zolt Beefgartner. The fight for third is on. Heading up through the cuttings here, and we see just how aggressive he's willing to ride along the side of that wall. Super, super close. You could barely put a penny between the Lexus and the wall there at the cuttings at turns 3 and 4. Up through Quarry, up through to Frog Hollow, then to Reed Park, then to Solomon here as we get up towards the Wall of Death. In towards McPhillamy. This is where the Mustang starts to put a little bit of distance on the Lexus. Just having a little bit more in the corners there, those long sweeping corners. There's dust up in the eyes of these two from ahead. It could be the number 1 out in front of them, having kicked up a little bit of that dust. Cas van Velzen. Currently, as it would stand, getting up past Dimitri McLeon into Forrest's elbow. And as Ben Meredith puts in chat there, I think it's quite an apt description of today. Bathurst is the kind of track that separates the men from the boys on this grid, or I suppose in a more neutral term, the wheat from the chaff. Bear in mind, look, this has not been the first time we've faced trouble in Bathurst, lest we forget one of, I would say, the most iconic moments of the NLRL Sunday League in the last few seasons, Season 5, Round 4, Race 1, which saw, I would still regard, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest pile-up we had ever seen. In any event, I think the record before that was well over half the grid, and that was, oh no, don't tell me. Oh my goodness, hang on just a moment here, folks. A bit of an interjection on the fight for third. There's more trouble for the 54. And it's at the same section of the track, so I can only assume the worst here for that of Carlos Dish. And it is, oh my goodness, not again. There's only so much of a beating a man can take. You can see this is now going to be what looks to be his third visit to the pit lane. It has been a horror show. Frankly, a nightmare in Bathurst for this one. The Audi, which had normally been a very strong sight on this grid, it was a risky transfer for Carlos Dish, and as we see there onto the grass, 7 rounds before today had proven to be, albeit a curious choice, but an effective one. Bathurst has been the great divider on vehicle choice here. And it has separated the wheat from the chaff when it comes to these cars. Audi, even in the hands of a driver as experienced and as capable as Carlos Dish, last season's Rookies champion, was within arm's length of a Drivers' Championship, went all the way down to the line with Cas van Velzen in Season 5. Just cannot extract any more performance from the R8. The last of a dying breed here, the last of the V10s. As Lamborghini already settled their differences and moved on to the twin-turbo V8 with the Temerario. Audi facing the Requiem Knell. Back on with the V8s then as we head up towards turn 23. These two still have a score to settle for third. Heading in through to turn 23 onto lap 30 here in Bathurst. 28 minutes left to go. Zolt Beefgartner versus Brooklyn Donkin. Donkin's faced it all today. He's been on the attacking end in his fight with Leger. He's now on the receiving end, defending from Beefgartner. He's had a lively race here, an eventful one at that. So following in here with the Lexus chasing him down, heading up towards turn 2 at Griffin's Bend. Let's see how it all unfolds in the fight for third place. Going for the outside now. We've already seen this before. Donkin now with more options at turn 2. Doesn't have to try and go for the outside like he did on Leger. Ultimately, it was contact between the pair of them. It's worth noting with their fight at the moment, and with traffic in between themselves and the nearest car, Tyler Vermack is 2 seconds in closing from these two here. In between him and these drivers is Dimitri McLeon, who right now, as we head up through to the mountaintop section, is going to be a difficult car to get around under blue flags. He might have to wait until the Conrod here, but in this final stint, 27 minutes before the checkered flag, he may have the opportunity to capitalise on these two's recent fight for the podium and find himself much in the same conversation. Down through Skyline into the dipper here, now through the S's. Into Forest's elbow, very late on the brakes there. We see that rather surprisingly, I'm not sure how he's been able to do that, but getting up past McLeon before this section here, just out of Forest's elbow now. Vermack is in 5th place, having got ahead of 8th place's number 3 Mercedes, and is 2.7 seconds from these two. Now, this is going to be the major stressing factor. He is going to have to charge like a bat out of hell in every corner to give himself the distance to catch up with these two, because you are looking at two of the fastest machines on this grid, the 7th generation Ford Mustang and the Lexus RCF, both of which capable at Monza of 174 miles per hour. The Ford, as a matter of fact, is capable at a squeeze of 175. So these are proper speed demons we're talking about here for the podium fight. The McLaren, while fast, can't hack it anywhere near as close. Rather playfully, we've seen there from in chat from Ben Meredith again, one of the sort of bosses of the ACC division for Euro Titans, and sort of TP to this crew. And he's been saying if Brooklyn Donkin crashes in today's race, he's going to have to admit that Ben is the better pro clubs player. If we can get the L's on through there, hopefully he'll not be taking any today. He's got to admit that he's the better pro clubs player. On what, FC26, I believe it is now. Not a clue, don't play those sort of games. Heading up through towards here, the rundown at Skyline now, in towards the dipper. This is such a feral drive here from Zolbeef Garner. I mean, it's proper claws out stuff on the 599, ragging this machine. A decade old, this car, introduced in 2015. And a design that has been around here for just over a decade. A machine that just cannot be killed off. Where the rest of the earlier GT3s here on Assetto Corsa Competizione have gone the way of the dinosaur. Such has been the story of the Ferrari 488, the McLaren 650S, the Aston Martin V12 Vantage, and the ML Frey Jaguar. The Lexus is the one constant that remains in that mix. And now, pressed right up to the rear bumper on the number 17, we barrel down towards turn 23, nearly side by side. He's front to rear quarter, but to the outside, setting himself up for a switch back up towards Hell Corner. Donkin defends, covering from the inside, parks the bus. And while things have been a bit drab for the last couple of laps, these two are sure to give us quite the fair dealing of spice on today's grid. And all of this, I should remind, as you can see the set of lights there on the mountain straight, closest to them, that's Tyler Vermack, 2.1 seconds away. Their continued fighting is only aiding along the current championship leader. Heading up through, let's see if we can see what he sees here on with Zolbeef Garner. I think now better than ever is a time to use the helmet cams to really get a look in. Now, I believe, I'm not an expert, unless he's got very fast hands. This looks to be controller gameplay from Zolbeef Garner. Not judging, of course. Many of the drivers on the grid are controller players themselves. Donkin is one in that list as well. And he used that to take a win at Paul Ricard earlier this week. It just does look a little bit silly as well when you see how quickly the hands jolt around there in the car. That's why we prefer to go on the dash cam view here, just so you get to see where the car's off to, not what the driver's doing to get the car to go where he wants. I can relate to their position as well for using pad. I used to play Project Cars 2 on controller before I had the money for a rig. I used to do a lot of F1 league racing with my friends on pad as well. In fact, I prefer that over wheel. Trying to play it on wheel now, it just feels wrong. Heading up through then to the chase. We see way late on the brakes here. Can he hope to make the move? No, he'll be seeing the grass, but my goodness. Zoltan Beefgarner avoids crisis. Split-second timing, but here comes Tyler Vermaak. Up to 4th goes the McLaren. And that was one costly mistake for Zoltan Beefgarner, who now drops to the back of the top 5. This has kicked open the door now for Tyler Vermaak's chances at a podium, as now he finds himself pressed ever closer to the number 17 in front. You can see off in the distance there, making his way past the cameras, the number 1 of Cas van Velzen. Right now, as it stands, 5-Star and TSRC challenge Euro Titans for the podium. See at the moment on the straights here, even the shorter one, the 1.1 kilometer straight here at the mountain straight up towards turn 2, offers plenty enough ground for the Lexus to advance. Let's got a catch on board here with some of these drivers as well. We do see, in terms of Brooklyn Donkin's position of things now, holds about 1.4 seconds on Vermaak. So let's go to see from the point of view of the McLaren. Now, one thing that Vermaak's got to be aware of here, mid-engine cars, especially over the crest in towards Skyline, very, very skittish. We already saw that from Declan Anderson earlier today, so he can't get too tunneled in on that Ford in front of him and lose sight of the intricacies of that vehicle. These drivers, we've seen it before, they get into somewhat of a flow state in towards Sector 2 and 3 and often forget these smaller and very vital changes in handling characteristics. When you get this close to another driver, you start working in their dirty air. It's not an adjustment that comes naturally. On with Tyler Vermaak, then multiple-time race winner this season, current championship leader. Heading up through to the chase. Vermaak in range here, but he's got to put a little bit more closer to Brooklyn Donkin if he wants the chances to fight for that podium. Otherwise, he is still defending, as it would appear, to a recently scorned Zoltan Beefgarner. 20 minutes left to go here in Bathurst. Number 61 has a drive-through for speeding in the pit lane, and that does hark the rather... Oh, hang on a moment there. Just as we caught the aftermath, it has been, what, the 4th time today for Carlos Dish? I hate to put him on a pedestal like this. I think there comes a certain point where he's got to throw the towel in. I can respect the commitment to stay out for as long as he has and fight the strife that has been this Audi. I think this is the last we'll see of him with Audi. I would not be really all that surprised at all if by the end of this race today he makes the announcement he's leaving Audi Sport. Now, I think he'll reluctantly stay on with them for the next 2 rounds, knowing he's still in range of a championship fight with Tyler Vermaak. But this is definitely going to put the... oh, goodness. As we see here, the final nail in the coffin on his time spent with Audi. It was certainly a risk. Certainly a risk. But unlike the 55 and unlike the 17, this one has not worked out in the long run here for Carlos Dish. In fact, the entire Euro Titans team, bar a few drivers, have taken significant risks on today's event. We see here with Kieran Rodd, and it is cheeky, I will say it. It is rather cheeky what they're doing. He's come back, now 15th in this race. Entered late, of course. Drive-through penalty and a mandatory pit stop to serve in the next 18.5 minutes. I don't necessarily know. Will this make up for the troubles with Carlos Dish? No, certainly not, because he's got to make 31 laps to go level with Dish, and I don't think we have the time. No, I don't think certainly we'll have the time for 31 additional laps. So going to catch on board with Beefgarner versus Vermaak, and it's more trouble here at the chase. How many more times is he going to fumble the brakes there? Whose side is he on here? Because all of that fumbling is opening the gaps up for Donkin ahead of Vermaak. It's true, it's true. I've just seen there, it's worth noting. Kieran Rodd jumps in to complete the barest minimum of this race so that he doesn't pick up 5 penalty points for not showing up. He has the time now, but he didn't have the full 90 minutes. Okay, it's fair enough. It's fair enough. It's still a surprise. It's sort of a... It's like when you see a surprise appearance in Monday Night Raw or on SmackDown or something like that for wrestling fans. You know, oh, suddenly, here's Kieran Rodd on the grid today. Well, that recent stumble there for Beefgartner has put Tyler Vermack what stands as a 2.7 second margin from Brooklyn Donkin. Beefgartner really up against it now. You can see him fighting with that machine to put it back into fourth place. It has been an uphill struggle for these drivers throughout today's event. Even for the ones sitting in the top 5, it has not been a smooth ride today. Looking up at the race lead as he gets up past one of the new drivers there, that being Ruben Pino of Talkline Motorsport. And I should illustrate as well, these have been drivers seldom spoke about in today's event, the two Talkline cars, among a huge roster of new faces for this round, most of which exterminated within 10 minutes. But these two remain, among other drivers as well, with T. Whitey, for example. They remain, and they will collect on a sizable wad of points here, because they're, at least one of their drivers, in the top 10, under the new points regs, and we do see there the withdrawal of another vehicle. We are down now to, and it is a very bleak state of affairs. I will point this one out. As we see in the pit lane goes T. Whitey. Carlos Dish in for lengthy repairs, and it really would not at all shock me if this is his way of throwing in the towel on today's event. And of course, Kieran Rodd now coming in. And he also has damage, rather curiously. It has been a very rough day. And I'm going to say it how I see it. It's not been great. It's not been great. But with all that being said, we have still seen some exciting ones of racing from these drivers, and moreover, it continues to advance Tyler Vermack towards the possibility of a championship. Now, it has been a very, very rough day for him. It is also going to help significantly here, Zolt Beefgartner, to enter the conversation on the championship fight. He was third before today, and it looks very likely to be the case that he'll be seeing second over Carlos Dish. Now, the drop point system is there to help these drivers out. It is worth considering that while, yes, the points distribution has changed for some of the drivers today and the teams thereafter, it is still got the drop point system. So all is not yet lost, I would say. See then for Tyler Vermack down through towards the dipper, then out of Skyline. With 14 minutes to the line here, we're looking roughly at 7 more laps from Fake Galaxy. To look back historically at his wins in this series, we'd have to take a look back to Season 5, where in which his last victory came at the doubleheader Season 5, Round 8, won both races in succession. And this will be, by looks of it, his first race win in this series and I'm just tallying the numbers here. "17 races, technically 16, with this being the 17th. Well over a season then, well, a season to the round as it would happen to be the case, but 17 races over the brand new Season 6 regs it's been thus far. Since Galaxy's last victory, still holds the cards of only 2 over his Sunday League career, over the 69 races that have ran since Season 1, Round 1. And this is going to be quite a significant one for him, because it is worth noting, during that time, I believe Season 5, Round 8, if I'm not mistaken, he was still spending the rest of that season with 5-star. It was a case where Dish transferred first, but Galaxy remained until the end of the season, if I remember Season 5's proceedings rightly here. So for what is now his first full season with Euro Titans Endurance, it's better late than never here. After what has been a brutal, brutal round, we do find ourselves presented with about 6 more laps out of this one here, coming up on a 12 minutes left in what has been, for most pretenses here, a disaster upon the grid. This otherwise would have been red flagged in a real life situation for safety concerns. The drivers will soldier on. It's be those who survive will be those who benefit from today's event. coming forward into the last 2 rounds of the championship with this much interest in the series, this many sign-ups, but so few capable of delivering. Now, of course, I'm not trying to paint everyone under the same umbrella here, or under the same brush, I should say. You can't paint things with an umbrella as far as I'm led to believe. Obviously, people have given their reasons, and they're not the ones that we're speaking about here. We're talking about the drivers who have signed up, then never showed up. No reasoning, no sign out, nothing. I think coming forward, there's definitely got to be a bit of a word on that. There are some changes coming up in towards Season 7 we'll discuss a little later on in the next 2 weeks. Of course, we revealed during the news segment today, it's a major article, was the fact that coming up into Season 7, we are, I believe, confirmed to have a new BOP system coming in. That'll be brought to you by the folks at XCL in line with partnerships between all 3 parties, TRTN, NLRL and XCL coming forward towards Season 7 of the Championship. There'll be more information on what comes up later into that next season, along with the calendar in the next 2 weeks' time. So, of course, do join us on the final round of the Championship in Monza 2 weeks from now. We get underway with the calendar reveal. The wheel will stay for better or for worse, and I think for many drivers then they'll be hoping Bathurst does not come up again on the wheel. Ben Meredith in chat saying, when was Skeen's last victory? Well, Season 2, Round 3, right here in Bathurst 4 seasons ago. So that was quite some time ago. Now, if I try to quickly run the maths for you here, I believe that was, doing the numbers in my head, 58 races ago, roughly. Actually, a little bit more than that. 62 races ago, when you include the sprint and features and the double races. Roughly 62 races that's been. So actually, oh wait, no, 61. We saw there in front. That looks like connection troubles for the 813. Luca Tamburini, ITAM Racing Porsche, in the top 10. And as you can see, he's reconnected. Part of that trouble with reconnecting, when you have some latency issues, is the car, especially in nighttime conditions, at least from our point of view, shows up with no lights on. That's a very big concern here for this one. Fate Galaxy getting very, very unkind flashbacks to this section of the track in conditions like these where visibility is at a low, and there's not a great deal he can do if there were to be a car stranded. We see there, I think Tamburini's caught wind of the fact he was being given the meatball flags there, and has fortunately let the 55 on through. So fate smiles upon the 55 today. Reading there from Ben Meredith. And, you know, if you were up to it, we were probably going to try and speak with you after this race anyway, but we saw that they've had winners in this series from Austria, Switzerland, the Netherlands, and Scotland. And I assume then that would be Alan Alexander, who otherwise competes under the Union Jack, but is, I believe, Scottish. Speaking of, we do see him here. He's in the chances to be, if there is a big mistake up front, there is actually a very capable chance for Alan Alexander to find himself in the top 5. But 8.5 minutes here. I don't think the top 5 are going to be making any more mistakes. Hopefully not to be the case, but we have seen plenty of shockers already today. There has been a story of resilience and survival from this one. Started 26th on this grid. Well, 25th actually was Ben Cheeseman, who started 26th, but still 25th. He's up 19 positions to 6th in this race. I don't think there needs to be much a guess on who's getting driver of the day. I really don't think there is, because, again, he might be farming driver of the day votes by having performances like these, but when you consider he's had to do all of that in Bathurst at night, those are extra variables. And from the pit lane as well. We are entering the end of days here for Fate Galaxy, as it would stand after this lap. About 3 more to follow before the end of Season 6, Round 8 of the NLRL Sunday League, powered by TRTN. What has been a very rough day, one that will not be fondly remembered in the history books here on the Sunday League. Race number 70 has been one of great distress. But from that very dark cloud comes the silver lining here. Fate Galaxy can finally, if he can see himself to the checkered flag, can finally close the book on what has been over a season's worth of torment here in Bathurst. Finally proving once and for all he can master the mountain. The mountain will not have its way in taking the chances off of him. He stands alone then on that Conrod, only now just being joined as he makes his way towards the chase by the approach of the 813 and pardon me there, the 813 and the 67. Trouble there for the 813. That's Luca Tamburini. You see the back end bounce quite significantly there. Seeing here at the moment, Zolt Beefgartner, 2.1 seconds from Brooklyn Donkin, who is in turn 2.1 seconds, now 1.2 seconds as it stands from Cas van Velzen. Then, as we see for Tyler Vermaki's 2.9 seconds from Zolt Beefgartner, we have just been given word of another drop away. And hang on just a tick, I think we might be able to capture that on the replays. Who actually just disconnected there? Alexander, don't tell me it was. There, we saw it on the top left-hand side. Alan Alexander has disconnected from this race. The 54 looms in the paddock there, and I think Carlos Dish, having just dropped off the jacks, will wait to see what his decision is. It would not at all surprise were he out of this race now. That is horror for Alan. It was such a solid comeback there. He was on the chances for driver of the day. He was looking at a solid points haul. My goodness. It can't get much worse, can it? It can't keep going on like this. Well, as I said last season, believe you me, it can. And it will. You see there, scraping the wall, Cas van Velzen in pursuits from behind then, Brooklyn Donkin. And this is a grim day in Sunday League history. One of the most brutal races we had ever seen. Now, we have seen massive grid wipeouts before. We have seen low grid numbers by the end of a race. But this stands tall as the most brutal race in Sunday League history. Season 6, Round 8 has seen a total casualty rate of 12 drivers of its grid disappear. We are actually, as it stands right now, should it be the case either the 315 or the 54 retire at a 50% knock to the grid size by the end of this race. That does place it right now as the worst race in the Sunday League's history. But that does not take away from what the drivers have been able to bring us today. The ones that still survive on this grid, let alone finish this race. They have faced it all then, each other. The lack of visibility, the sun disappearing yonder the horizon. And for some, like the case of Alan Alexander, his internet service provider has been the biggest of enemies. With that trouble, though, does bring Leger back up to 6th. All right, now with the recovery for things for Cas van Velzen in progress, we are starting to see a build-up into Van Velzen possibly returning to the conversation surrounding the championship top 5. It is getting rather close. I want to point that one out between these two. 1.7 seconds between Van Velzen and Donkin. 1.2 seconds between Beefgartner and Donkin. But this is the real erroneous case here. 3.7 seconds between Beefgartner and Vermaak at the back of that top 5. It's been trouble for Vermaak to play up against the success ballast today, and it's kept the McLaren from claiming any more victories. He won't be seeing that 13th race win. But he will be fortunate to have survived today here in Bathurst on what has been the most dangerous race in Sunday League history. bar none. I don't think there's any comparators you could bring to the table that put it even close to what the drivers have faced today. We do head on into the penultimate lap of racing from the point of view of the leading 55, as we just watched there with Dimitri McLeon lapping out past Carlos Disch, who I am delighted to tell you is back on track. It had been a very rough day for this one, but he is determined to see the checkered flag. And you've got to appreciate that kind of resilience here. He's been in and out of the paddock 4 times. Oh, no, don't tell me. Into the wall. Yeah, no, that was... Couldn't have cut away any better from the cameras there. Yeah, that's the towel. That is the towel in. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have spoke too soon there. That is... that's a rough one. Number 61's emerging from the pit lane, so Kieran Rodd will be adamant to see the checkered flag today. This is going to put quite a large shadow over Carlos Disch's career in the Sunday League. This has been his worst race to date. It's going to put quite the shock in his spine over the course of this race and over the course of this season, no less, as well, where he stood right within the chances of an overall drivers' championship. This move to Audi has sold away, by looks of it, any chances of him being able to do the same. He's a rookie no longer. He's not got the graces of a rookie's championship to fight for, nor does he stand close to the lead of the championship, where last season it was Cas van Velten, this season it's Tyler Vermaak. It really, at this time, and I hate to rub salt in the wounds, but it really just cannot get any worse for him now with Audi. This has been, by and large, the worst advertisement for the R8 I think we've ever seen. Whereas his teammate, the driver he once stepped into the same round alongside when they made their debut in Zolder last season at the 5-star esports team before both of them would pick up contracts at Euro Titans, played a gamble, sold it early, moved away from Audi when he got the chance, moved to BMW, has not looked back a single time since. But in this race, he's had to look back quite a few times because no one has stood for long ahead of this one. The 55 enters the last lap of Season 6, Round 8. And having survived a track that took away his chances for his first ever Sunday League win, one that he would have to wait until Season 5, Round 8 to get both in succession in the double-header towards the end of last season. Fate Galaxy is about to master the mountain here in Mount Panorama. And this has been a story, a season in the making, something we have been waiting so long to see. Returning to the track where he has had one of his most nightmarish turns in his career on the Sunday League now finds him an apex predator here at the home of the Bathurst 1000. We follow him through to McPhillamy Park. Now, it is worth pointing out, have a glance in there to see 17-1 and 599, super close to one another. So not to be taken away by what's going on here. We are seeing on the final lap a fight for second on 3 fronts. Van Velten, Donkin and Beefgartner barrel up towards turn 2. Now we'll be catching on with them in a moment's time. As we keep an eye here to the 55, we'll be snapping back through to see updates from their fight as we wait to go and catch on board with Fate Galaxy. Up and around the cuttings we go. It's going to be down to the wire between these 3 for the podium, especially in the case there of Zolt Beefgartner fighting to put himself on the podium with TSRC Esports Lexus. Following on with them through to McPhillamy Park. This is where things could get ugly for these 3 drivers as they make their way down through. As we see off in the background there, that's the, I believe, the 813 of Luca Tamburini. But following down towards the line here with the number 55, Fate Galaxy, a season in the making, finally conquers Bathurst once and for all. The checkered flag's out. Fate Galaxy wins in Bathurst. An unmistakable drive from the Austrian today. And this has to be among the most gratifying feelings for him to have finally conquered his fears of the mountain. You see in the background, more trouble for Luca Tamburini. Let's go to catch on board, though, the fight for the remaining podium positions as it looks to be the brewings of a Euro Titans 1, 2 and 3. As Cas van Velten, by looks of it, has left the door open long enough for a run on the inside into turn 20, then the outside at turn 21. We see fidgeting under the brakes, goes the Porsche out wide. So this could be a number 17 P2. Down towards the line we go, getting up and ahead, and it puts Beefgartner on the podium. The Lexus will see P3 at the end of round 8, where Galaxy took the win. Brooklyn Donkin returns to second in the last moment. Zolt Beefgarner takes third, Van Velsen to fourth, Vermaak to fifth. A split-second finish here in Bathurst. Trouble for Van Velsen, a stop-go 30 at the end of this race for Luca Tamburini, but not that I think it'll matter. He's 3 laps over the nearest car. Leger, right now, as it stands to be the case, makes his way down towards the line, and we're recounting his results in the last couple of weeks, is looking at an unprecedented 6th rookies win in a row after his outright win at the Season 6 Round 7 feature in Imola last week. Down to the line, his 6th rookies win in a row, to make 7 this season for him across the line there. 6th overall at the end of this race. McLeon to see his first podium in rookies in Division 2nd. And on debut, Ruben Pino of Talkline Motorsports sees the rookies podium in the 927. Rest of the results coming in shortly then. Last down towards the line, Alan Alexander, a driver who has fought with his internet service provider to see just out. Actually looking there, no, sadly just out of the top 10. A bitter end to today's event for him. We see the full result in there. Fake Galaxy wins in Bathurst. Brooklyn Donkin in second, with Zolt Beefgarner to a surprise P3. Van Velsen falls to fourth on the last hurdle. Tyler Vermaak rounds out the top 5. Patrick Leger wins in the rookies for his 6th time in a row now, with Dimitri McLeon in second. Ruben Pino in the last of the division podium positions, 3rd, but 8th overall. Further down the line, then 9th place for Luca Tamburini. And rounding out the top 10 is Pedro Lopo for Talkline Motorsports. Alan Alexander in 11th. TYT123 in the number 67 sees 12th. Rounding out the finishing positions today, Carlos Disch in 13th. And then we get on into the toll, a list as large as the finishing grid itself. We do have another finisher there, Kieran Rods, who technically finishes 18th. We see the whole myriad of drivers out of this race. Nagolski, Lamming, Cheeseman, Bonker. Looking further down the line, the list goes on. A very, very brutal day here in the land down under as we see the grid thin out now, taking their leave of stage. Now taking a look in towards the chat at the moment to see if there are any drivers looking for an interview. We'll give it a few seconds there, but this has been, by and large, an absolute maelstrom of machinery here in Bathurst. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like that in all my times covering races here in Bathurst. Multiple different leagues have come to the shores here of Australia to fight in its largest of halls here in the Mount Panorama circuit. We've seen VSR, we've seen MSC, we've seen NLRL on many an occasion, we've seen HCCL. The list can only go on. I think one of the best races we ever saw here in Bathurst was on the XCL Pro Series in our coverage of Mount Panorama, which was won, if I'm not mistaken, by VXS's Toby Cyril. That was a brilliant, brilliant race and another win for Ford. But this has been a dark, dark day in the history of the NLRL Sunday League, but one that has given us the end of what has been a rather troublesome story for this one here. The 55 of Fake Galaxy closes the book on his woes in Bathurst by taking home a win here in round 8. And as we're seeing it in the chat at the moment, doesn't look like anybody's queuing up for an interview. So moving away from that to have a look at the road ahead. Coming up next, the Red Bull Ring, back on the standard format on the 19th of July for the penultimate round of the NLRL Sunday League Season 6. After what has been a troubled day here on round 8 of the championship and more trouble the week before in Imola, we're hoping for smooth sailing in the next 2 weeks to see us through to the end of what has been a highly experimental season of the championship, fresh with new regulations to boot. It has given us some of the greatest racing opportunities of the last couple of months here on the Sunday League over the course of the last 2 months, as a matter of fact, since the season started on the 17th of May at Spa. We got to see plenty of new faces here and new race winners to go along with it. 2 more weeks between us and the end of days in Season 6. Next destination then, the Red Bull Ring, home of the Austrian Grand Prix and then the also former Styrian Grand Prix in 2020 and 2021 when you include MotoGP. And then the week after that, the Temple of Speed awaits. A sprint race, 3 races in total at the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza. 26th of July, the season finale, 2 weeks from now. Set it on your calendars, 6:30 p.m. BST. Now, we want to quickly go back on towards our intro starting graphic because some of you may have seen tuning in earlier today. That is the list of events we have coming up. On Monday, we head to the Nürburgring with Fatch GT. On Tuesday, we head to Silverstone with the TRC Sprint Cup EU Series. On Wednesday, 2 races from Competizione Performance League and OLR XVSR at Zolder and the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya. On Saturday, we head to 3 different events with NLS2 live on VPR and live exclusively through TRTN at the Nürburgring Nordschleife at 5 a.m. Then the season finale of the HCCL Ginetta Summer Challenge in Silverstone. Then we head to Zandvoort with the Continental Racing League. On Sunday, July 19th, our next coverage of the Sunday League Season 6 Round 9 at the Red Bull Ring, 6:30 p.m. BST. Well, that's all from us here on TRTN. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. If you're joining us tomorrow then, live at the Nürburgring for Fatch GT and then next round of Season 11. That's all from us here today. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Take care and good night.